Chapter 1351. Ning Shu looked at Cheng Fei in silence. "I'll look at you in silence." He didn't say anything. In the end, Cheng Fei decided to take Ning Shu to see his parents. He didn't know if he was seeing a ghost or not. Before leaving, Ning Shu prepared a lot of things, such as a dagger and medicine powder. This time, he had to make Cheng Fei show his true colors. On the day of departure, Cheng Fei dragged the luggage downstairs and waited for Ning Shu. Ning Shu carried the bags downstairs and walked to Cheng Fei. Cheng Fei took the bags from Ning Shu, one in each hand. Ning Shu walked beside Cheng Fei and asked, "Do you want me to buy something for your in-laws?" "You have to buy something for your in-laws." "It's okay. My parents are very easygoing people. If you want to buy a gift, wait until we get off the plane. After all, there's so much luggage. You can wait. You can go shopping with them. You can pay for whatever they like." Cheng Fei tilted his head and smiled at Ning Shu. "By the way, do you have money on you? I'll give you my card." Ning Shu was speechless. How could they talk about the dead so normally? It was as if they were still alive. Ning Shu really wanted to kneel down. He had met so many people, but this was the first time he met someone like Cheng Fei. There was nothing unnatural about it. If Ning Shu hadn't found out that Cheng Fei's adoptive parents were dead, he would have believed that there was such a pair of in-laws. Cheng Fei and Ning Shu boarded the plane. The plane flew high in the clouds. Ning Shu looked at the clouds outside the window. "Ai Yun, there's something I need to apologize to you about." Cheng Fei whispered to Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded. "Go ahead. About your mental disorder, I found a few experts to look at it. Basically, all of them said that you have some sort of mental disorder and that you have persecutory delusions, so what?" Ning Shu looked at Cheng Fei. To be honest, mental disorders were not easy to identify. For example, the person next to her was such a normal person, but was he normal? Ning Shu felt that he was not normal at all. "If this matter has made you unhappy, I can apologize. When the time comes, I hope you won't mention this in front of Mom and Dad." Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, did Cheng Fei take her to see a ghost? He looked so serious that she almost believed him. Ning Shu nodded. "I won't tell anyone. Don't worry." Ning Shu pulled down his blindfold and covered his eyes. He could smell the faint smell of disinfectant on Cheng Fei's body. There was also a bitter smell of Western medicine. Seeing that Ning Shu didn't want to talk, Cheng Fei could only sigh. He reached out and grabbed Ning Shu's hand. His palm was sweaty. Ning Shu took off the blindfold and saw Cheng Fei's pale face. "Are you afraid of heights?" "Yeah." Cheng Fei forced a smile. Ning Shu only had one word. He didn't believe him. He wanted to take advantage of her. This was only on a plane. He didn't seem to be afraid of heights even though he lived in a high-rise building. Ning Shu comforted Cheng Fei. "Don't be afraid. If the plane is in an accident, it won't crash like a car." Cheng Fei was speechless. This wasn't comforting at all. On the plane, Cheng Fei kept holding on to Ning Shu's hand. His palm was very wet and it made Ning Shu very uncomfortable. When they got off the plane, he quickly wiped his hand with a tissue. Cheng Fei's face was so pale that he looked like he was going to faint. Ning Shu didn't know if it was real or not. Cheng Fei was too charming. He had a handsome face and a strong body. He was very attractive to women. There were always women who felt that they were unique and different from others. They could subdue men. It was all the same. Cheng Fei brought Ning Shu to a place. Cheng Fei told the driver a place. Ning Shu didn't know where it was. The car drove on the streets of a foreign country. The streets were full of foreigners with blonde hair and blue eyes. "Where are we going?" Ning Shu looked out of the window and asked. Was Cheng Fei trying to kidnap her? He was bullying her because she was in a foreign country. Let's go to my parents' house first. Cheng Fei said. They are not at home now. They are on their way home and will be back soon. We have to wait for them. Cheng Fei explained. Ning Shu nodded. He might be able to see Cheng Fei's adoptive parents at night. Since they had passed away, why did they have to hide it so painstakingly? What was so shameful about it? The car stopped in front of a house. The house was quite nice. It was European style and had a garden and a yard. From the outside, it looked like a small red brick house. There was a green mailbox in front of the yard. It looked very refreshing. Cheng Fei carried the things and opened the door of the yard. This house is very beautiful. Ning Shu said. Cheng Fei nodded. This is where my adoptive parents live. They are always away and rarely come home. Cheng Fei took out the key and opened the door. The interior was very well decorated and looked spotless. I asked someone to clean it before we came, Cheng Fei said. Ning Shu was speechless. Was Cheng Fei a roundworm in her stomach? How could he know what she was thinking? Cheng Fei packed the luggage. Ning Shu said, what do you want to eat? I will make it for you. Just eat whatever you have. Ning Shu looked around the house and asked Cheng Fei, who was making the salad, why aren't there any photos of your adoptive parents? There should be. You can look around. I rarely live with my adoptive parents. I don't know the details. Ning Shu was speechless. Cheng Fei had told countless lies on the way here. Ning Shu felt that there must be more to Cheng Fei's adoptive parents. Cheng Fei placed 2 plates of salad on the table. Ning Shu sat down, picked up the fork and put the lettuce into her mouth. Ning Shu paused for a moment. Cheng Fei looked up at Ning Shu and swallowed the food in his mouth. He asked, why aren't you eating? Does it not taste good? Ning Shu shook her head and ate it. She knew that there was something in it, but she still had to swallow it. It felt so good. Ning Shu ate 2 mouthfuls and did not want to eat anymore. She did not have much of an appetite. Eat more. You were on the plane for so long. Cheng Fei put the lettuce in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu rubbed her eyes and looked a little sleepy. She said to Cheng Fei, I want to take a nap. I am very sleepy now. Cheng Fei had actually drugged her with sleeping pills. Moreover, it was an addictive sleeping pill with a high content of zolpidem. Okay, go to sleep. I will contact our parents and see where they are now. Cheng Fei said. Ning Shu nodded. She wanted to see what Cheng Fei was up to. Ning Shu went to the bedroom and snuggled into the quilt. There was a smell of sunshine in the quilt. Lying under it felt very comfortable, and he wanted to sleep even more. Ning Shu closed her eyes and mobilized the spiritual energy in her body, slowly digesting the medicinal properties. Chapter 1352. Ning Shu didn't eat much of the salad. Even without spiritual energy, Ning Shu could keep her mind clear. She wanted to know what Cheng Fei was thinking. Why did he drug her? Was he going to do something to her? This was the second time Cheng Fei had done something to her. Ning Shu pricked up her ears to listen to the sounds outside. She could hear Cheng Fei's footsteps outside, one after another. What was he doing? The medicinal effects in Ning Shu's body had already dissipated a lot. She released her spiritual force, wanting to see what Cheng Fei was doing now. Then she saw that Cheng Fei was sharpening a knife. Ning Shu was speechless. He looked like he was going to kill a pig. He wasn't going to kill her, was he? Moreover, Cheng Fei was already wearing a white coat. Ning Shu was speechless. He brought a white coat with him when he was traveling. I gave you a chance to commit murder. You really did it. Gotcha, the sound of the door opening was heard, followed by footsteps. Finally, the footsteps stopped beside the bed. Ning Shu felt that Ching Fei was staring at her. Ning Shu's body tensed up involuntarily. A hand was placed on her shoulder. Ning Shu almost jumped up, but then she relaxed her body. Ching Fei was a slippery fish. She couldn't catch him. She had to take a risk. Ching Fei picked up Ning Shu. Ning Shu cried in her heart. It was supposed to be a romantic Princess Carrie, but now she felt like a pig in a pot of boiling water. Ning Shu closed her eyes as if she was in a deep sleep. Then she released her mental strength to check the surroundings. Ching Fei carried her to the basement. There was a strong smell of formalin and disinfectant in the basement. It was a little pungent. Ning Shu almost sneezed, but she held it back. Ching Fei put Ning Shu on a wooden board and turned on the lights in the basement. Ning Shu scanned the basement with her mental strength and found many corpses soaked in formalin. Some specimens are very beautiful when they close their eyes and smile. There was also a pile of amber at the foot of the wall. There were worms and eyes in the amber. Ning Shu even saw a hand. A fair and slender hand, or perhaps a leg. There was also a chemical device not far away. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu had a bad feeling in his heart. Ai Yun, I love you. Ching Fei whispered into Ning Shu's ears. Hearing Ching Fei's voice, Ning Shu's heart sank. A cold and gloomy aura spread throughout her body, causing her to shiver uncontrollably. If she really believed Ching Fei, she would be a pig. Getting her to this place was a problem even if she used her toenails to think. Ning Shu only wanted to say, "Love you, my ass." Ching Fei used the surgical scissors to cut Ning Shu's clothes. Ning Shu opened her eyes and looked at him silently. Ching Fei saw Ning Shu staring at him and smiled at Ning Shu. "You're awake." Ning Shu sat up and looked at Ching Fei. "What are you doing?" Ching Fei smiled gently. Ai Yun, I found a way to live forever. This lunatic was seriously sick. Ning Shu smiled and asked, "What is it?" "You'll know when the time comes." Ching Fei pressed Ning Shu's body. "Don't worry, it won't hurt. If it hurts, it won't be beautiful." Ning Shu was speechless. "Ching Fei, what do you want?" Ning Shu pushed Ching Fei away. "Where is this place?" "Ching Fei, you lied to me. Your adoptive parents died a long time ago. Why did you lie to me?" Ching Fei sighed, "So you've known about it." "Sorry, I lied to you about it." Ning Shu was speechless. He didn't know why, but he felt so helpless. Even if Ching Fei showed a ferocious expression, Ning Shu wouldn't find it strange. Even now, Ching Fei's face was still gentle and courteous even though he had already shown his true colors. It made people feel helpless. Ning Shu looked at him. "Why did you lie to me?" "Because they're all dead." "How did he die?" "If he died, then he died." "Why didn't you tell me?" Ching Fei looked at Ning Shu with a gentle and loving gaze. "There was a fire at home. My adoptive parents were burned to death. There was also a 5-year-old sister. When I came home from school, the firemen carried them out of the house. They were beyond recognition. Their bodies were convulsing. My 5-year-old sister was also dead." Ning Shu was speechless. There was a fire. A family of 3 was burned to death. And it happened when Ching Fei was in school. Ching Fei had a perfect alibi. I didn't want to tell you such a horrible thing, so I found someone to pretend to be my parents. Ai Yun, can you forgive me? Ching Fei asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu scratched his head. My bad temper, you didn't have to hide it. Why did you hide it? Ning Shu looked at him expressionlessly. I didn't want you to know that I was an orphan again. Ning Shu thought, "Io, so pitiful, damn, he really wanted to slap this guy. His words were watertight. Then why did you bring me here? Ning Shu asked coldly. Cheng Fei looked innocent. Aren't you here for a vacation? Ning Shu really wanted to give him a tight slap and talk nicely to him. You came to the basement for a vacation. Do corpses soaked in formalin look good? Ning Shu shrugged. Cheng Fei sighed helplessly. I didn't want to show you the corpses. Ning Shu was speechless. Even now, he was still acting cute. Cheng Fei took out the amber hidden at the foot of the wall and showed it to Ning Shu. There was a woman's hand in the lake. The hand was slender and beautiful. The skin was fair and the fingernails were pink and delicate. There were no barbs. The amber color was dark yellow, which made the hand even more beautiful. Why are you showing me this? Ning Shu asked expressionlessly. This is the way to immortality that I was talking about. It can be preserved in the most beautiful state forever. Peace and tranquility lead to eternity. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn it. You want to kill me? Ning Shu was in disbelief. Cheng Fei shook his head. I love you so much. How can I kill you? I want you to be preserved in the most beautiful state. I want you to stay by my side forever, Cheng Fei said affectionately. So, you want to turn me into amber? Ning Shu's face trembled as he said incredulously. This idea was so novel and perverted. He felt that Cheng Fei was not a doctor, but a crazy artist. A crazy artist who had no scruples. Cheng Fei was the one who was fucking paranoid and beyond cure. He could kill you so affectionately and then turn you into a specimen. So good. So affectionate. Ning Shu slapped Cheng Fei's face hard. Cheng Fei's face was slanted to the side. Cheng Fei slowly turned his face. There was blood at the corner of his mouth. He still looked at Ning Shu kindly. Be good. Don't make a fuss. Be good. Chapter 1353. Even though Ning Shu was the one who attacked Cheng Fei still doted on him as if he was looking at his ignorant wife. Cheng Fei licked the blood at the corner of his mouth. Ning Shu smiled. I know you can't accept it right now. I can wait. Ning Shu thought he was asking him to die, not borrowing money. How could he say it so easily? Then how are you going to turn me into a specimen? Ning Shu asked. Will it hurt? Cheng Fei smiled gently. It won't hurt. You won't feel any pain at all. I'll use the plasticization technique first, then I'll wrap you in amber. You'll always be so young and beautiful. You'll always be my favorite. Ning Shu, love your ass, how could this be called love? Why don't you turn me into amber? What does my life have to do with you? Why do you have to kill me? Even if I'm going to die, you should at least let me know the reason before I die. Dad, did you do this? Ning Shu asked. Are you trying to kill my mother? Cheng Fei shook his head. No. I never wanted to kill your parents. Why would I kill them? They're your parents. I love them as much as you do. Thank you so much. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. She didn't feel too good. Cheng Fei and Ning Shu smiled. You're welcome. Ning Shu looked at the piles of amber on the ground and the bodies soaked in formalin. Did you kill all these girls? Ning Shu asked. Cheng Fei shook his head. I got them from the funeral parlor. I was practicing making amber. My amber skills are getting better and better. The impurities are getting lesser and lesser. I'll definitely make you into the most perfect amber, Cheng Fei said. It seemed that Ai Yun was still alive because Cheng Fei wasn't good at making amber. Ning Shu couldn't help but scratch her head. Cheng Fei was very vigilant. Other than wanting to turn her into amber, he denied everything else. Ning Shu not only suspected that Ching Fei was behind this, but also suspected that he had killed his adoptive parents and his 5-year-old sister. At that time, Ching Fei was only in his teens. If Ching Fei really killed his adoptive parents, Ching Fei would be too scary. He felt that Ching Fei was not only paranoid, but also had a high IQ and antisocial personality. Personality, charisma on the surface, highly educated, and everyone seemed to like him. He looked friendly, but he used his charisma to manipulate others. He was very heartless. He didn't feel guilty at all when he did something wrong. People with antisocial personalities were professional manipulators. They achieved their goals by controlling others. Don't expect such a person to be sympathetic. No amount of persuasion would be of any use. Instead, you would be controlled. Control your emotions. For example, if you were happy today, someone with a sociopath would come to you and tell you that the boss was very dissatisfied with your work recently. How can you be happy at a time like this? His mood instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. Ching Fei showed the amber to Ning Shu one by one. He smiled and said to Ning Shu, "Look, aren't there fewer impurities? I practiced for a long time." Ning Shu, is it really okay to discuss with me like this? This is turning me into amber. It feels exactly the same as letting me choose my own coffin. Ning Shu looked at Ching Fei. He was wearing a white coat. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. He was a handsome young man. One's appearance was too deceptive and pretentious. Who would think that Ching Fei was a bad person when walking on the street? No one. Ning Shu felt that she was unlucky. The men she met were either brain-damaged, handsome but brain-damaged, or gay. Or they were so affectionate that they wanted to kill him. So when he met these men, he should destroy them. Out of sight, out of mind, and be happy. Ai Yun, which one do you think looks better? Ching Fei asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu held his chin and looked at the amber. He pointed at the amber in one hand and said, "This one looks good." "I think so too. Ai Yun, don't worry. I will make you look better than this," Ching Fei said. Ning Shu said indifferently, "Thank you so much." Ching Fei, did someone bully you in the past? That's why you became like this? Ning Shu asked. He grew up in an orphanage, was adopted, and became an orphan. Ching Fei looked at the amber and said without looking up, "No. I had a conflict with my classmates. My teacher always believed me." Ning Shu shrugged. Was it because he was handsome or because he pretended to be a good boy? That's why the teacher always sided with him. Ching Fei had been wearing a mask since he was young. He was always liked in front of others. Ching Fei put down the amber. Ning Shu said gently, "Lie down. Don't worry, it won't hurt. It will be a success." Damn, people who didn't know better would think that it was an operation. Wait. Ning Shu waved his hand. Ching Fei sat beside Ning Shu and asked, "Is there anything else?" Ching Fei made people feel helpless. Looking at his smug face, people would think that he was going to make a great contribution. Ning Shu said, "I have something to say." "Go ahead." Ching Fei kissed Ning Shu's forehead gently. Ning Shu said, "Get lost, tell me about your past. For example, the orphanage and your adoptive parents' home." Ning Shu felt that he was crazy to be able to talk to Ching Fei so calmly. The orphanages in China are all like that. Every time someone adopts a child, the director will dress the child up cute and make us smile sweetly. I was chosen by my adoptive parents because I am healthy. I don't have any diseases. Ching Fei's tone was perfunctory when he talked about his adoptive parents. Did your adoptive parents treat you well? Ning Shu asked. They treated me very well. Ning Shu said, he didn't think so. Okay, can we start now? Ching Fei said. Wait a little longer. Ning Shu waved his hand. Cheng Fei looked straight at Ning Shu and said calmly, "Ai Yun, are you not willing?" Ning Shu said, "I have one last question. I won't ask this question anymore." "Why me?" Ning Shu asked. Ai Yun was not a great beauty. Her facial features were not very delicate. Cheng Fei reached out to touch Ning Shu's lips. Ning Shu moved back and avoided Cheng Fei's hand. Cheng Fei lowered his eyelashes and said, "Because you have a beautiful set of teeth, as white as a shell. And you are pure. Maybe it's because you were born in a happy and intellectual family. So when you stand there and smile, you look like an ink painting. At that time, I thought that I must keep your beauty," Cheng Fei said. Chapter 1354. Keep my beauty. Ning Shu admired such shameless people. "My beauty has nothing to do with you. Just because I'm your wife. How shameless." Ning Shu looked at Cheng Fei. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" Cheng Fei nodded. "Beauty is in the bones, not the skin. I don't think I'll be able to find another girl like you. Should I thank you for your compliment?" Ning Shu shrugged. "You've been planning this ever since you married me?" Cheng Fei nodded. He didn't say anything and continued working. He took out a syringe and injected some medicine into the bottle. As he checked the dosage, he comforted Ning Shu. "Don't worry, it won't hurt at all." Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at Cheng Fei. "Are you sure it won't hurt?" "I promise," Cheng Fei said with a smile. It was as if they were discussing what tasted good and what to eat today. Ning Shu waved his hand. "I refuse." "Why?" Cheng Fei looked disappointed and confused. "Why not? I'm going to die now." "You're going to kill me," Ning Shu said. "I'll disappear from this world." "No, amber can preserve you well. Even if it's thousands of years, you won't disappear. This is immortality." "Immortality, my ass. A well-preserved corpse is immortality. Immortality means that you have your own consciousness. You can jump, eat, and sleep. That's what it means to be alive. Things preserved in amber are like the insects in amber fossils. They have no meaning at all." "Don't worry, I'll always be by your side," Cheng Fei said. "Stay by my side in the most beautiful way." "Fuck you. People like Cheng Fei don't make sense. He's stubborn and never thinks that he's wrong. There's no good or evil. There's no right or wrong. Even if you're handsome, I'll call the police." "Cheng Fei, were you abused when you were young? That's why you're so perverted." Cheng Fei blinked. His long eyelashes fluttered. He looked a little cute. "No, I won't let anyone bully me," Cheng Fei said. "Are you feeling sorry for me?" Ning Shu was speechless. "You killed your foster parents, and now you want to kill me. Ai Yun, I don't want to kill you. I want you to live forever by my side. Moreover, I didn't kill my foster parents. Why would I kill them?" Cheng Fei's expression was very helpless, as if he was looking at a child who was pestering him endlessly. She took the needle and walked towards Ning Shu. "Don't move. I'll inject you with some sleeping pills. I promise you won't feel any pain." The syringe was dripping with water, and Ning Shu had goosebumps all over his body. Especially when he saw Cheng Fei's gentle and loving face, Ning Shu gave him a big slap. "What are you doing? Didn't I say that I'll stay by your side? I've never thought about dying. Who would want to be with a pervert like you? Since you're going to die at the most beautiful moment, why don't you die with me? Then you can turn into a butterfly and fly away. Isn't that great?" Ning Shu shrugged. "Why am I the only one who's going to die and you're still alive?" Cheng Fei pursed his lips, and some blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. He stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. Cheng Fei frowned. "You shouldn't have hit me like this. It will ruin your beauty." Ning Shu was speechless. What I look like is my own business. It's none of your business. Ning Shu felt that Cheng Fei's self-restraint was too good. He wasn't angry even after being slapped twice. Was he not angry, or was he holding it in? Cheng Fei, I think you should go see a doctor. You're seriously ill. Cheng Fei lowered his head and looked at the syringe in his hand. I'm a doctor myself. I know you can't understand my thoughts, but I'll let your beauty shock the whole world. Thank you so much. Ning Shu felt helpless. After talking to Cheng Fei for a long time, he didn't get any useful information. So far, the only thing he knew was that Cheng Fei wanted to make her into amber, even if she didn't die. Cheng Fei could only be considered as an attempted murder, and the crime of destroying a corpse was not Ning Shu's goal at all. Ai Yun. Cheng Fei reached out his hand to touch Ning Shu's head. If I die, how can I make you into amber? I don't feel at ease leaving you to others. They won't know your beauty at all. I have to make you into amber myself, Cheng Fei said gently. Ning Shu felt that he would never love again. This person was really. He really wanted to slap Cheng Fei again. Ning Shu really couldn't control the violent primitive force in his heart. Cheng Fei was so soft and gentle. He really made people feel helpless. And he was very tight-lipped. No matter how Ning Shu provoked him, he didn't react. Even if she said that Cheng Fei killed his adoptive parents. Cheng Fei just calmly denied that he wanted to kill the AI family's parents. Cheng Fei also denied it. He was really innocent. She almost believed him. Li Chen and Li Chang's matter has nothing to do with you. I just want to know the truth before I die. Li Chen, you're talking about the person who instigated Li Chang to do the kidnapping, right? I don't know him. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu. Why do you always want to pin these things on me? The only person I care about is you. How slippery. Ning Shu spread out his hands. So, I've decided not to die. If I don't die, I don't want to be made into amber. I'll anger you to death. Cheng Fei's expression did not change. He looked at Ning Shu with a wide and doting gaze. Stop messing around. I'm going to be killed. Can't I resist? Don't resist. It's not good to hurt your body. If your skin turns black, it won't look good. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu's arm that was injured before. It was now scabbing. How did you get injured? Later, I'll tattoo a shallow tattoo on your wound. This way, it can cover the scar. Please don't talk to yourself, okay? Cheng Fei really couldn't hear what he was saying at all. Ning Shu saw a stainless steel surgical plate next to the operating table. There were scissors and a knife on the plate. Ning Shu grabbed the scalpel and placed it on his arm. I'm going to cut my skin now. I won't let you make a perfect amber. Ning Shu wanted to anger Cheng Fei now. Such a soft Cheng Fei made Ning Shu unable to take the initiative. Ai Yun, put the scalpel down first. Are you sick again? Cheng Fei's expression changed and his tone became gentler, as if he was coaxing Ning Shu. Put the scalpel down first. We can talk about anything. Ning Shu. Damn, why did she look like an abnormal person now? Ning Shu did not want to stab himself, he only wanted to stab Cheng Fei. Damn it. Ning Shu said, I don't want to be made into amber. Okay, we won't be amber. Don't hurt yourself. I'll listen to whatever you say, Cheng Fei immediately agreed. Chapter 1355. Ning Shu cursed in his heart. Who the hell needs your coaxing? I want you to be angry. Angry, you know. This kind of Cheng Fei really made people tremble. He hid his emotions and lived as if he was another person, a perfect and likable person. He maintained absolute rationality at all times. He pretended to be in a way that others liked. He really got nothing. Ning Shu hardened her heart and cut a wound on her arm. Blood immediately gushed out. Cheng Fei quickly used a cotton pad to block the wound on Ning Shu's arm to prevent more blood from flowing out. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Cheng Fei frowned impatiently. Why are you hurting yourself? Ning Shu smiled and said, because I don't want to be turned into amber by a monster like you. I want to live. Cheng Fei frowned. Why can't you figure it out? Preserve the most beautiful moments of your life and don't rot away bit by bit. You want me to die and then blame me for not figuring it out. Even ants have to live. Why must I die? The most beautiful moments of my life? I'm willing to rot away slowly and finally rot away. You illegally took someone else's life and still act like I'm good to you. Thank you so much. You said I'm a monster. Cheng Fei looked wronged. How can you think of me like that? You are a monster. I just don't want to die. Cheng Fei paused and sighed. I won't blame you because you can't understand and appreciate beauty. Fuck your second uncle. Ning Shu really couldn't control the primitive power in her body. Ning Shu grabbed Cheng Fei's collar and looked at him. Cheng Fei, you. When are you going to stop pretending? What's wrong? Cheng Fei sighed and started to treat the wound on Ning Shu's arm. No matter how angry you are next time, you can't joke about your body. Do you understand? We'll talk about this again after you recover. Cheng Fei said. When did I agree? I said I don't want to be a specimen. Can't you understand? Ning Shu wanted to slap Cheng Fei again. After being slapped twice in a row, Cheng Fei didn't get angry. Instead, he had a doting look on his face. It was really creepy. He didn't have the slightest bit of manliness, or perhaps he wanted to take revenge in other places. Have a good rest. We'll go back tomorrow. Cheng Fei rubbed some ointment on Ning Shu's wound. I'll wait until you're willing. Ning Shu tilted his head and asked, do I really have a mental disorder and paranoia? Of course, this was diagnosed by several experts. See, you always think that I'm harming you and hurting myself. Cheng Fei was helpless. Ning Shu was speechless. Who was the crazy one? Cheng Fei wrapped Ning Shu's arm with gauze. It was wrapped well and he even tied a beautiful bow at the end. Ning Shu looked at the bow and praised, actually, it's not bad for you to be an artist. After all, some artists are crazy. Cheng Fei looked even more helpless. You always say that I'm crazy. The one who's crazy is you. You're the one who's crazy. Your whole family is crazy. You say I'm crazy, I say you're crazy. Ning Shu didn't feel so good. Who was the crazy one? Ning Shu and Cheng Fei were speechless. Suddenly, the basement door opened with a bang. Then, there were many hurried footsteps. Soon, a group of foreign policemen appeared in the basement. Professor AI was among them. AI Yun. Professor AI shouted to Ning Shu. Ning Shu wiped his face. Professor AI came so quickly. Put your hands up and squat down. Cheng Fei was pointed at by many guns. He couldn't help but frown and look at Ning Shu. You called the police. Why did you call the police? Cheng Fei, don't hurt AI Yun. Professor AI's face was trembling as he shouted at Cheng Fei. Ning Shu shrugged. Because I don't want to die. Cheng Fei was heartbroken. You betrayed me. No, I'm just taking responsibility for my life. My life belongs to me. You have no right to take it away from me. Cheng Fei was restrained by the policeman. He looked at Ning Shu with a calm expression. I hope that we can be together forever. You want to kill me and live with Hu Pe. You call that being together? I told you, that's the most beautiful you. Cheng Fei said. Ning Shu waved his hand. He didn't want to talk to Cheng Fei. If he continued, Ning Shu felt that his outlook on life would be shattered. The policeman took Cheng Fei away. Cheng Fei didn't resist and looked very calm. Ning Shu asked Professor AI Yun, "Are you okay?" Ning Shu shook his head. "I'm fine." He didn't gain anything this time. Cheng Fei was trying to kill someone on purpose. It didn't affect him at all. A person like Cheng Fei could live like a fish in water no matter where he was. Even in prison, Ning Shu felt that Cheng Fei could live very well. Ning Shu took out the mini recorder attached to his back. It was broadcasted simultaneously. Professor AI knew that Cheng Fei wanted to turn his daughter into Hupa and immediately called the police. The domestic police contacted the local police to help arrest Cheng Fei. "When we go back this time, divorce Cheng Fei. Your mother heard the recording and cried until she fainted." Professor AI sighed. "Dad, I think Cheng Fei has something to do with Mom's kidnapping. Also, he might have killed Cheng Fei's adoptive parents. But this case happened more than 10 years ago. It's not easy to investigate." Ning Shu looked at Professor AI. "I'm just afraid that Cheng Fei won't let us off. It looks like Cheng Fei won't let it go." "I'll think of a way," Professor AI said with a sullen face. He had been with Cheng Fei for 2 to 3 years but he never knew that Cheng Fei was such a person. He wanted to turn his daughter into Hupa from the beginning. What a frightening thing this was. And during the process of getting along, he didn't show any signs of it. His impression of Cheng Fei was that he was gentle and polite, a young talent and an elite of society. But now, it had been turned upside down. Professor AI and Ning Shu returned to China. Cheng Fei was also transferred back to China. After all, this was a domestic case. As soon as they entered the house, Mrs. AI hugged Ning Shu and cried loudly. She was out of breath. Ning Shu patted Mrs. AI's back. "Mom, I'm fine. You don't have to worry." Mrs. AI wiped her tears. Ning Shu sobbed and said, "Divorce. Hurry up and divorce Cheng Fei." Who knew that Cheng Fei was such a person? "Mom is old and blind. I wanted to entrust you to Cheng Fei, but I didn't expect Cheng Fei to be such a person." Mrs. AI gritted her teeth. Cheng Fei was a complete pervert. Chapter 1356. Mrs. AI really couldn't imagine how her daughter had lived with Cheng Fei for the past 2 years. Cheng Fei monitored her and implanted a tracking device in her wound. Ning Shu comforted her, if Cheng Fei didn't have a mental illness, he would be a good son-in-law. But it might not be as perfect as it was now. Hurry up and get a divorce. We can't delay any longer. What if Cheng Fei comes out of the police station? Mrs. AI was worried. Professor AI frowned. Ning Shu said, if Cheng Fei can stay in prison, we will be safe. Dad, if there is evidence that Cheng Fei killed his adoptive parents and 5-year-old sister, then it won't be a simple charge of attempted murder. It will be an international crime. Ning Shu couldn't help but sigh. I tried both soft and hard methods, but I couldn't get anything out of Cheng Fei's mouth. If he's guilty of instigating someone to kidnap, he'll definitely be sentenced to a heavy sentence. The problem is that Li Chen has already confessed to the kidnapping, and the evidence matches. Professor AI's face was wrinkled. How did our family meet someone like Cheng Fei? Let me think, who introduced Cheng Fei to you? I'm going to dig up her ancestral grave. Mrs. AI was furious. Ning Shu suddenly realized that she was quite dangerous even though she was pretty. It was easy to attract wild bees and butterflies. Being inconspicuous was the safest. Beautiful women had short lives. AI Yun was not very beautiful, but her temperament was outstanding. She was unforgettable in a crowd. Beauty was not enough. She had to have the ability to protect her beauty. Otherwise, it would be a tragedy. Beauty was a double-edged sword. It could be beneficial, but it could also lead to a tragedy. Sigh, It's my fault for being too beautiful. Ning Shu touched his face and sighed. AI Yun, I'm talking to you. What do you think? Mrs. AI pushed Ning Shu. Oh, then let's get a divorce. I've wanted a divorce for a long time. Ning Shu went back to his room to rest and fell asleep on the bed. He had been tense all the time. When he relaxed, he felt tired. In addition, he had used his spiritual power before. He felt very uncomfortable. By the time he woke up, it was already dark. Mrs. AI boiled some soup and brought it to Ning Shu. Drink it. Ning Shu drank the chicken soup and looked at Mrs. AI's guilty expression. He said, Mom, I'm fine. Don't worry. You know what kind of person Ching Fei is. Why did you go on a trip with him? Mother AI wanted to hit Ning Shu, but she recalled the wounds on Ning Shu's body and retracted her hand. You even scratched yourself. What were you thinking? Mother AI began to nag. What should I do if I don't lead the wolf into the house? I can't catch Ching Fei at all. At least now, Ching Fei is guilty of attempted murder. Ning Shu said helplessly. Moreover, Mother AI kept telling her to reconcile with Ching Fei every day. What could she do? She was also in despair. Ning Shu could feel that Ching Fei was suspecting her. Maybe Ching Fei would make a move on this trip. He took the initiative to give Ching Fei a chance, but Ching Fei was used to hiding. Even under such circumstances, he didn't say a word. He denied it from the beginning to the end. It was really frustrating. Ning Shu went to the police station and asked the policeman who was investigating the kidnapping case, Did you ask Li Chen why he went to the cafe? The policeman said, he said that he suddenly had a whim and wanted to go to the cafe. Ning Shu chuckled. Do you believe that? Li Chen is obviously lying about this matter. He can't explain why he went to the cafe. There should be something else. We will continue to investigate. Ning Shu nodded and thanked the policeman. This kind of thing should be left to the professionals. Ning Shu then looked at Ching Fei. Ching Fei was wearing a prison uniform, but he was still handsome. Ning Shu shouted through the window, AI Yun. Ning Shu nodded. Wait for me. I will definitely go out. Ching Fei smiled at Ning Shu. Ning Shu, even at this time, she was still like this. You still want to make me into amber? She was so stubborn that she thought she was right. Ching Fei nodded. What made you so crazy? I will change, okay? This person was purely crazy. It was not love, but possessiveness. No matter what you become, I will still like you. Ching Fei said. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. No, you are afraid that I will be old, afraid that I will rot. So you want to make me into amber, so that I will always look young. You are afraid that my face will be full of wrinkles. Didn't they say that they would grow old together? Was this love from Ching Fei? Ning Shu could even imagine a disgusting scene. Maybe Ching Fei would touch amber, kiss amber, or rub amber. Oh my God. Ning Shu did not dare to let herself think about it. Just thinking about it made her feel disgusted. Ning Shu said, I hope you will be happy in here. Ning Shu carried her bag and turned to leave. She did not want to talk nonsense with Ching Fei. She might as well go back and find evidence so that Ching Fei would never be able to come out. AI Yun, wait. Ching Fei stood up, put his hand on the glass, and looked at Ning Shu. AI Yun, can I ask you a question? Love, no date, Lanxiang, save my mother, no regrets. I don't know how to answer this question. I have something to do tomorrow. I lost weight, I don't have much money, I don't know how to make money. Ching Fei, I want to ask you how your wound is. Remember to take anti-inflammatory medicine and change the bandage often. The wound is a little deep and may be infected. Go get a tetanus shot when you get out of the police station. Ching Fei said. Ning Shu nodded. You have to work hard. You have to be worthy of the country and the party, okay? Ning Shu turned and left. She decided to go home and find evidence. When she reached the door, Ning Shu took out the key and opened the door. Ning Shu walked into the room and released her mental strength to see what was in the room. Mental strength was really a good thing. She did not have to look for things everywhere. Ning Shu stood in front of the safe. All of Cheng Fei's valuable things should be inside. The safe was a little thick and it was a little difficult for her mental strength to penetrate it. She felt that something was blocking her mental strength. It was not easy for her mental strength to penetrate the safe. Ning Shu was already sweating. Ning Shu retracted her mental strength and rubbed her temples. She already knew what was in the safe after a quick scan just now. A passbook. The passbook was in a foreign language. It was obviously not a domestic bank. There was also a diagnosis from the hospital. It seemed to be a match for the heart. The name was Cheng Fei. The other was the name of his 5-year-old sister. The disease was congenital heart disease with a missing heart valve. Ning Shu raised her eyebrows. Did the Chinese couple adopt Cheng Fei for the heart? To find an organ source for their daughter? Chapter 1357. Ning Shu couldn't open the safe, so he could only carry it to the locksmith to open the lock. But this safe was really heavy. When he went to the locksmith, he told Ning Shu that he didn't have the skills to open the safe. So Ning Shu carried the safe to the police station and asked the professionals to open it. Ning Shu carried the safe to the police station and said that there was probably some evidence inside. He asked the police to open it. This safe belongs to your family. Don't you know the password? The police asked the technical department to open the safe. Ning Shu spread his hands. This is Cheng Fei's safe. I really don't know the password. They were husband and wife. Cheng Fei was involved in all aspects of Ai Yun and strictly monitored her. But Ai Yun knew very little about Cheng Fei. This wasn't an equal relationship. It felt like Cheng Fei treated Ai Yun as his accessory. Ai Yun might even be a beautiful accessory to Cheng Fei. A beautiful amber. She was probably thinking, be my slave. Cheng Fei was concerned about Ai Yun. Even though he was detained, he still wanted Ning Shu to break the tetanus shot. It was like he was protecting a precious thing. Note that it was a thing, not a person with self-awareness. While the safe was being opened, Ning Shu asked, how's the investigation of the kidnapping case? Is there any progress? The police said, your school's principal is urging us to close the case. So, when the investigation reached Li Chen, the case was almost closed. What did Li Chen say? Ning Shu asked. Li Chen said that he went to the cafe because he wanted to hide far away to do bad things. He was a little scared because he was surrounded by acquaintances. So, he went to the cafe. Ning Shu was speechless. This was a reason. Since Li Chen doesn't care about his own future, why should we investigate? If he is willing to bear the responsibility alone, then it doesn't matter, the police said impatiently. This case has dragged on for a long time. It has seriously slowed down our rate of solving cases. Ning Shu saw the police's attitude and knew that they didn't want to investigate further. Li Chen was the mastermind. If he didn't investigate, then so be it. Why couldn't he pin the crime of instigating the kidnapping on Cheng Fei's head? The safe was opened. Ning Shu flipped through the passbook. There was a lot of money in the passbook. Cheng Fei seemed to have been living off this passbook since he was 12 years old. Because every once in a while, he would withdraw money. Could this be the inheritance of Cheng Fei's adoptive parents? Ning Shu opened another craft paper document. Inside were 2 sets of physical examinations, blood type matching, and body rejection prediction. In short, these 2 people had undergone heart transplant surgery. From these two documents, it could be seen that the Chinese couple adopted Ching Fei for his heart. However, a fire suddenly broke out and the family of 3 was killed. Even the 5-year-old girl who needed a new heart died. As the chosen heart, Ching Fei naturally didn't have to die. He was originally a healthy person, but he was forced to replace his heart with an unhealthy one. Not to mention the rejection reaction, the broken heart alone made Ching Fei's future uncertain. He might die at any moment. He didn't know how Ching Fei felt when he left this document behind. If the probability of Ching Fei killing his adoptive parents was 50%, then the probability was 90% now. Because his adoptive parents were dead, he could get an inheritance and his heart wouldn't be replaced. Having a motive was also beneficial to him. Ning Shu handed the document to the police. Ching Fei might have killed his adoptive parents. This was a case more than 10 years ago. Moreover, the victims weren't from our country. Since they don't care, we don't have to investigate here. This was a thankless task. Even if the investigation was successful, which country's law would be applied? Ching Fei was now a Chinese citizen. After his adoptive parents died, he was deported back to China. Moreover, he requested to return to China. He was already a Chinese citizen. Ning Shu spread his hands. He didn't stop cursing in his heart. Ching Fei was really a scary person. When his adoptive parents died, he had a perfect alibi because he was at school. When he returned home, he found out that his adoptive parents and sister were burned to death. No one would believe that an 11 or 12-year-old child would kill someone. Ning Shu was speechless. Didn't they know how to run when the house was on fire? They were burned to death in the house. Even if they smashed the glass door, they could still escape. Unless the family of 3 had lost their consciousness, they wouldn't be burned to death. Ning Shu really wanted to beat Ching Fei to death. I want to ask you a question. How long can my husband be sentenced for attempted murder? Ning Shu asked. According to Ning Shu's investigation, attempted murder was sentenced to death, life imprisonment or more than 10 years in prison. If the circumstances were less serious, the sentence would be more than 3 years and less than 10 years in prison. Ning Shu didn't know how the judge would sentence Ching Fei. Especially since Ching Fei's mental state was different from a normal person. He was afraid that a lunatic would kill someone that wasn't illegal. If that happened, Ning Shu would really be in trouble. It depends on the situation. Then, if my husband is mentally ill and has a serious antisocial personality, what will happen in the end? Ning Shu asked the policeman tentatively. Well, if he is mentally ill, invite a psychiatrist to check if he is mentally ill. Anne. The policeman looked at Ning Shu. If there is a problem, Ching Fei will be sent to a mental hospital. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. Sent to a mental hospital? In other words, if Ching Fei was mentally ill, he would be acquitted. Once he got better, he could be discharged. Fuck. Ning Shu slammed the table. If Ching Fei was really acquitted, what was he going to do? And with Ching Fei's intelligence, he knew how to avoid punishment. If Ching Fei really avoided punishment in a crazy way, once he was found to be crazy, Ching Fei might be acquitted. At most, he would be locked up in a mental hospital. Ching Fei was a doctor himself. Of course, he knew how to diagnose mental illness. It was too easy to admit that he was mentally ill. In fact, the evidence of Ching Fei's attempted murder was only a recording. The evidence was a little weak. Ning Shu walked out of the police station worriedly. He didn't know how to deal with Ching Fei. He couldn't imagine what would happen to Ching Fei. The old couple from the AI family and her. Ning Shu thought about his skills. Needlework, goo poison, acupuncture, mental strength, and the ability to communicate with intelligent animals. A lawyer was useless here. Ching Fei was not only a doctor, but also a law student. He knew very well what loopholes there were for him to exploit. Ning Shu felt that he really didn't know how to love. The case from more than 10 years ago was still unsolved. Now, the family of 3 was already dead. They were no threat to Ching Fei. Chapter 1358. Ning Shu tried to think of a way, but he could not think of a reliable way. Ching Fei was the most patient and pretentious person Ning Shu had ever met. He was not arrogant when he succeeded, and he was not arrogant when he failed. He was also very tight-lipped. He was sensitive to things that were not good for him. Ning Shu looked at the wound on his arm. He had lost so much blood, but Ching Fei only put him in custody temporarily. Ning Shu channeled his energy to the wound and slowly healed it. This was Ai Yun's body. She had no choice but to harm herself. With the help of spiritual energy, there should not be any scars left. The wound was a little itchy. It should be healing. Ning Shu sat on a chair in the square and looked at the people coming and going. Beside him was a person using an iPad. Ning Shu suddenly remembered that he had not checked Ching Fei's computer and communication devices. If Ching Fei really did something, there should be traces. Ning Shu did not see how Ching Fei used the computer. Since he was monitoring him, he definitely needed a computer. Ning Shu did not have the key to Ching Fei's clinic. Before going to the clinic, Ning Shu went to find a locksmith. He had to pry open the door. Ching Fei's clinic was not small. Because of the recent incident, the clinic was not open. The locksmith opened the door, and Ning Shu walked into the clinic. There was a smell of disinfectant in the clinic. It was clean and tidy. Ning Shu found Ching Fei's office and saw a computer on the table. Ning Shu walked over and sat on the chair. He turned on the computer, but Ching Fei had set a password. What was the password? Who knew what the password was? Ning Shu tried to enter a few passwords. There was a birthday. Ching Fei's birthday, but the password was wrong. Ning Shu entered Ai Yun's birthday, but the password was still wrong. This was strange. What kind of password would Ching Fei set? Ning Shu entered their wedding date, but the password was still wrong. Ning Shu was too lazy to enter the password. He took out his laptop from his bag and started to connect to the computer. He directly opened Ching Fei's computer by force. Ning Shu's fingers moved and he finally turned on Ching Fei's computer. Ning Shu clicked on the files on the computer. Most of them were information about the medicine purchased by the clinic and some patient's information. Ching Fei had organized everything very well and it was very clear. Ching Fei's work ability was very strong. Ning Shu clicked on the video. These videos were taken at home. Ai Yun was in the video. Ching Fei was monitoring Ai Yun's eating, drinking, and defecating. Ching Fei knew what to do. Just imagining himself picking his nose while someone else was watching him. That feeling felt so good. Ning Shu browsed through Ching Fei's computer and sent all the videos to her computer. Perhaps these videos would be useful. Ning Shu wasn't looking for these videos. He just wanted to know if Ching Fei had hacked into other people's computers. There were some things about Li Chen that didn't make sense. However, Ning Shu searched for a while and found that Ching Fei's computer was really clean. Even the cache of browsing web pages was wiped clean. It was obvious that Ching Fei had cleaned it himself. Ching Fei was very good at counter-investigating. After searching for a while, he didn't find anything. Ning Shu leaned back and threw the mouse away. What the fuck? What the hell was Ching Fei doing? But it was weird that he cleaned it so thoroughly. If there wasn't anything, why did he clean it so thoroughly? Li Chen's incident might have something to do with Ching Fei. He might even have instigated someone to kidnap Ai Yun's mother. But there was no evidence at all. Luckily, she reacted quickly. Otherwise, Ai Yun's mother might really be in trouble. What was Ching Fei's motive for doing that? Why did she fall down in the end? She couldn't even dodge that kind of attack, let alone Ching Fei. Was it a trick? Or was he afraid that she wouldn't be a perfect amber if she fell down? Ning Shu returned home empty-handed. Ai Yun's mother immediately asked Ning Shu. Are you divorced? Ning Shu shook his head. The court will be in session soon. I will apply for a divorce then. Ning Shu was the victim, so she had to appear in court. Ai Yun's mother was worried. What if he doesn't agree to the divorce? He definitely will. Ning Shu said. The judge wasn't crazy. He knew that Ching Fei wanted to turn her into amber, but he still didn't want a divorce. Divorce was a small matter. The most important thing was how to deal with Ching Fei. This wasn't something that could be solved by a divorce. Even if they got a divorce, Ching Fei wouldn't let them off. With Ching Fei's methods, it was easy for him to deal with them. Ning Shu hugged her head. She couldn't fail this mission. If she failed too many times, she would be killed. Ning Shu was really giving it her all. Ning Shu went back to her room and lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She really wanted to stab Ching Fei. Ching Fei had committed a crime, but she couldn't. What if she got caught? Damn it. Come on, let's hurt each other. Ning Shu sat up and slammed the bed. She didn't believe that Ching Fei couldn't defeat her. She wasn't going to beat around the bush with Ching Fei. She was going to fight him face to face. She just wanted to see what Ching Fei would do. The school had given Professor Ai a punishment. He was suspended with pay. As for when he would be suspended, no one knew. It was very likely that Professor Ai would not be reinstated and would have to retire early. Professor Ai suddenly became very dispirited. During dinner, he didn't eat more than 2 mouthfuls. Ai Yun's mother was anxious, but she didn't know how to comfort her husband. Ning Shu drank the soup, and Professor Ai looked at his daughter, who was eating happily. Ning Shu put down the bowl and said to Professor Ai. Dad, don't be too sad. You are on paid leave. It's a good thing. Also, you have enough time to do your research report. You were a student before. Now, you can do what you want. Ning Shu felt that it was great to be able to play with money. He could do what he wanted every day. He didn't have to worry about his students. This will be a stain on my life. Professor Ai sighed. I don't want to go out for a while. What's the big deal, Dad? When your research report comes out, people will only say that you are a qualified professor. You are serious and rigorous, but not suitable to be a teacher. Ning Shu shrugged. Just do what you have always wanted to do. Isn't it good? Although Professor Ai knew what was going on, he felt ashamed. He felt that all the students in the school were talking about him behind his back. Even his colleagues looked at him strangely. Who asked his student to do such a thing? Ning Shu felt that Professor Ai was not used to being idle at home. He didn't know what to do for now. After some time, he would get used to retirement. Ning Shu prepared for the court session. Before the court session, Ning Shu received a summons from the court. Chapter 1359. Before the court session, Ning Shu went to the detention center to visit Ching Fei. Ching Fei was still as handsome as ever. When he saw Ning Shu, he even smiled at Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. He could really live a good life no matter where he was. It seemed that Ching Fei's labor camp life didn't affect him much. Was there no one in the detention center who didn't like Ching Fei? Was there no one who wanted to beat Ching Fei up? But with Ching Fei's ability, it was usually others who were at a disadvantage. Ning Shu was a little speechless. Seems like you're living a good life. Ching Fei nodded. The people here are all very kind. Ning Shu was speechless. Ha ha ha, they were all criminals but they were still kind. Ning Shu felt that he was a good person who could become a Buddha. Why did you come to see me? Cheng Fei asked Ning Shu. He looked at Ning Shu's arm. How's the wound? Ning Shu nodded. It's fine. Be careful not to touch the wound. Eat less seafood so it won't leave a scar. Cheng Fei reminded him. Ning Shu said indifferently, if the skin tissue is damaged, it's impossible to recover to its original state. Although it can't be restored to its original state, it can be restored to its original state. Cheng Fei said gently to Ning Shu, be good, don't eat anything that irritates the wound. Ning Shu's face was blank. Why was there no end to this topic? Fuck, she would drink chilly water when she got back. The court session is about to start. What are you prepared for? Ning Shu asked Cheng Fei. Cheng Fei shook his head. We'll talk about it later. Ai Yun, I don't think I'm wrong. They don't understand my thoughts. Ning Shu was here to find out more information, not to listen to Cheng Fei talk about immortality or whether it was beautiful or not. Attempted murder. You may be sentenced to the death penalty. Ning Shu threatened Cheng Fei. Cheng Fei shook his head. Ai Yun, I don't deserve the death penalty. Ning Shu's expression didn't look good. It's an attempt to commit a crime. I haven't turned you into amber yet. I can only say that it's an attempt to commit a crime. Compared to the sentence of intentional homicide, your punishment can be reduced. Cheng Fei said gently. Ning Shu, attempted murder and intentional murder were two completely different concepts. If Cheng Fei admitted his mistake with a good attitude, and it was an attempted crime. Moreover, if Cheng Fei managed to escape using his mental disorder, Ning Shu's efforts would be in vain. Ning Shu really wanted to punch Cheng Fei in the face on the other side of the glass. The human mind is a terrible thing. Ning Shu carried his bag and left. Talking to Cheng Fei was really infuriating. What should he do when he met a pervert? He had to be even more perverted than a pervert. Since conventional means couldn't deal with Cheng Fei, they could only find another way. Cheng Fei called out to Ning Shu. Ning Shu turned around and said, Love, no date, don't know what's good for you. Cheng Fei had a faint smile in his eyes. He looked at Ning Shu through the broken glass. What do you mean by that? You always say that. What do you want? Ning Shu felt a little impatient. He chanted the mind-cleansing mantra in his heart. He felt a cool breeze extinguish the fire in his heart. Ning Shu looked at Cheng Fei with a very gentle gaze. What do you want? Cheng Fei raised his eyebrows and said, I'll be out soon. Ning Shu shook his head and said even more gently, You'll be in jail for a long time. Trust me. How can that be? I want to appear when you're the most beautiful. I can't miss your beautiful moment. Ning Shu touched his face. My beauty is my business. What does it have to do with you? My face is on my body, not yours. You don't have the right to say that. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu with a doting gaze. It was as if he was looking at an immature child. You can do whatever you want. I won't care. Ning Shu turned around and left. What's the point of talking nonsense with you? The court session was in 5 days. Before that, Ning Shu made some preparations. Damn it. No matter what, he had to get rid of Cheng Fei. Being targeted by such a person would be a nightmare for the rest of his life. 5 days later, Professor Ai, Mrs. Ai and Ning Shu arrived at the entrance of the court. Today was the day of Cheng Fei's trial. To become a person like Cheng Fei, one must not only have a smart brain, but also have to learn all kinds of knowledge. If one couldn't even learn the knowledge well, how could he use it? Ning Shu suspected that everything was done by Cheng Fei, but she didn't have any evidence. So what if he suspected him? He had no evidence. The court session started. Ning Shu's family of 3 sat in the public gallery. But soon, they were called by the court staff. She was going to be the witness later. Cheng Fei came out in his prison uniform. She fought valiantly, causing the courtroom to be filled with sighs. Cheng Fei's expression was calm. He quietly listened to the prosecutor reading out his crimes. Ning Shu stayed in a room, watching the live broadcast on the television on the wall. He looked at Cheng Fei, who could remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. He didn't know what could make Cheng Fei lose control. Cheng Fei's control of his emotions was almost perverted. If a person could control his anger, there was nothing he couldn't do. Ning Shu felt that he was a very calm person. A very calm person with a lot of self-control. But in front of Cheng Fei, Ning Shu admitted defeat. Did Cheng Fei become perverted after holding it in for too long? Ning Shu was called out to testify. The judge asked Ning Shu some questions. Ning Shu answered honestly. He took out the handkerchief from before. This was Cheng Fei's handkerchief. Ning Shu had been keeping it with a vacuum. He sucked the air out of the bag. The handkerchief was covered in semen. Semen was easily volatile in the air. If he didn't do that, the smell on the handkerchief would have disappeared. Judge, my husband, Cheng Fei, has been trying to turn me into amber since we got married, Ning Shu said. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu. His gaze was still calm. He looked at Ning Shu quietly. Ning Shu took out the brake wire again. And Cheng Fei has been trying to kill my family. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu and said, this evidence can be fabricated. Ai Yun and I are husband and wife. It's easy for her to have one of my handkerchiefs. As for semen, you can get it from my clinic. Brake wire. I don't even know where this brake wire came from. Ning Shu wasn't angry. This brake wire was taken from my father's car in the garage after I got into the car accident. The mechanic can testify to this, Ning Shu said calmly. Professor Ai's expression didn't look good. Usually, they were the ones who used this car. It was obvious that Cheng Fei was targeting them. The couple lived in the newlywed house. He was the only one who used the car occasionally. Cheng Fei wanted to kill him. Professor Ai's face darkened. Chapter 1360. Cheng Fei's expression was calm. He denied Ning Shu's words and looked at Ning Shu calmly. Ning Shu wanted to convict him, but he was neither arrogant nor rash. The way he looked at Ning Shu was filled with deep affection. Sometimes, it was very deep. Ning Shu felt that she was like a ferocious pet in front of Cheng Fei. Cheng Fei didn't care. He didn't think that a pet could hurt him. Ning Shu lowered his head and didn't say anything. His evidence was really thin and couldn't support a sentence. Everything was related to Cheng Fei, but he couldn't do anything to him. The case was still going on. Ning Shu even thought that Cheng Fei might be acquitted. In the end, with the efforts of the procuratorate, Cheng Fei faced 5 years in prison. 5 years. It was too easy for Cheng Fei. Cheng Fei was really cunning. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu. His eyes were shining. Ning Shu was speechless. What did he mean? Was he showing off? Even though Cheng Fei had been in prison for 5 years, the people outside the prison were still worried. Because once Cheng Fei was released, they would face the fate of being killed. The law was like that. However, it could be used to punish people. Just as the presiding judge was about to pass the sentence, Cheng Fei closed his eyes and fell to the ground. There was a commotion in the courtroom. The medical staff quickly tried to save Cheng Fei. They checked his pupils and pinched his thumb, but it was useless. Then, Cheng Fei started foaming at the mouth. His whole body started convulsing uncontrollably. It was like epilepsy. Pfft, Ning Shu couldn't help but laugh. What was Cheng Fei up to? The convulsing Cheng Fei was surrounded by the police and carried into the ambulance. The ambulance drove away. Now that the prisoner was like this, there was no way to continue. Ning Shu's face was as black as the bottom of a pot as he walked out of the courtroom. Mrs. AI was puzzled. What's wrong with Cheng Fei? I didn't know he had this problem. Professor AI looked worried. Is Cheng Fei trying to avoid legal responsibility by doing this? In the end, Professor AI was more accurate. If Cheng Fei did not recover, the court session would be delayed and the verdict would not be announced. Now that Cheng Fei was in such a situation, even if it was out of humanitarianism and the fact that she, as the victim, was not dead, her sentence would probably be reduced. He was afraid that this illness was just the beginning. Ning Shu took a deep breath. Cheng Fei was all by himself. His family wasn't hungry, and he was alone. She had Professor AI and Mother AI. Naturally, there were more things to consider. If Cheng Fei were to throw caution to the wind, who knew what the outcome would be? I think we need to have a good talk with Cheng Fei. Professor AI had a headache. It's not good for anyone if this goes on. It's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Ning Shu wished for the world to be peaceful and beautiful, but was it possible? The possibility of Dad being involved in this matter is almost zero. Her previous performance in court was like throwing stones at Cheng Fei's head. Cheng Fei appeared to be calm, but it did not mean that he did not hold a grudge. The AI family was not in a good mood, especially the old couple of the AI family. One of them missed his daughter and wanted to turn her into amber all the time. He was too anxious. Because of this matter, he did not have time to talk about the divorce. Ning Shu thought for a while and asked the old couple of the AI family to go back. She would go to the hospital to see how Cheng Fei was doing. Professor AI wanted to go with Ning Shu, but Ning Shu said that she was fine and asked him to go back with Mother AI first. Ning Shu took a taxi to the hospital. Two policemen were standing at the door of Cheng Fei's ward, one on the left and one on the right, like door gods. As a criminal, Cheng Fei was treated so well and stayed in a single ward. Ning Shu waited at the door. After a while, the doctor and the policeman came out. Ning Shu hurried forward and asked, "How is Cheng Fei?" The doctor said, "The preliminary diagnosis is that he might have been poisoned by overdose of antidepressants. Now we are going to give him a gastric lavage." Ning Shu was a bit confused. Antidepressants? Cheng Fei still took antidepressants. Cheng Fei was pushed into the operating room. Ning Shu looked at Cheng Fei, who was pushed away from her. Cheng Fei's face was very pale. His eyes were closed and his long eyelashes were close to his eyes. They formed a shadow. What a sleeping beauty. However, there was only one sentence in Ning Shu's heart: "Fuck you." Cheng Fei was a doctor. How could he overdose? It was obvious what was going on. She could not do anything to him. What if he said, "I just want to commit suicide"? Damn it. She really hoped that the gastric lavage would make his stomach perforate. Ning Shu waited at the door of the operating room, waiting for him to come out. They were enemies, but she still had to wait at the door of the operating room. This feeling was hard to describe. After more than an hour, Cheng Fei was pushed out. When he was pushed out, his face was even paler. Ning Shu wanted to follow him into the ward, but she was stopped by the policeman at the door. Cheng Fei was now a suspect. Generally, visitors were not allowed. Ning Shu said that she just wanted to go in and take a look, but she was rejected. If she wanted to visit, she had to go to the police station to do the paperwork. Ning Shu was speechless. This was too troublesome. Ning Shu could only go and do the paperwork. It was difficult for her to go in with the policeman guarding the ward day and night. She could only follow the normal procedure. Ning Shu went to the police station to persuade them to get the paperwork. When she returned to the hospital, she saw the doctor and the policeman holding the manic Ching Fei back. Ching Fei's expression was deranged, and his pupils were a little scattered. Moreover, he was very strong. The two policemen and two doctors guarding the door almost couldn't hold Ching Fei back. Ching Fei struggled with all his might. His eyes were red and his handsome face was distorted. His pale face was flushed red. Ning Shu was speechless. She had only left for a while. What happened? Ning Shu really could not keep up with Ching Fei's pace. Ching Fei was pressed to the ground. The doctor took a tranquilizer and injected it into his body. The manic Ching Fei's eyelids gradually closed. He was not so manic anymore. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. Ching Fei was carried to the hospital bed by a few people. The doctor wiped the sweat on his forehead and said to the policeman, "I advise you to transfer him to the neurology department. This patient doesn't look normal." Ning Shu was speechless. Psychiatry. So Ching Fei had become crazy. First, he took antidepressants. Now, he was mentally ill. Ning Shu really admired Ching Fei. Ning Shu moved to the bedside and looked at Ching Fei, whose face was still red. "Get out. Ching Fei's condition is not stable. When he wakes up, he might hurt someone," Ning Shu said. "It's okay. He's asleep now. This is the paperwork for my visit." Ning Shu handed the paperwork to the policeman. "Just 10 minutes. You'll be out in 10 minutes. The police officer opened the door and looked at Ning Shu from the doorway. He was afraid that something might happen. Chapter 1361. Ning Shu pulled up the quilt for Ching Fei, released his spiritual power and scanned the surroundings to see if there were any cameras. It was normal to find a camera in the ward. "Hurry up." The police came in and pulled Ning Shu out, then closed the door. "Ching Fei is now a suspect. We can't visit him casually. What's more, Ching Fei's mental state is unstable. Who knows when he will go crazy." Ning Shu didn't even have time to do anything before she was pulled out. "Are you going to transfer him to the psychiatry department?" Ning Shu asked. "We have already asked for instructions. Ching Fei must be transferred to the psychiatry department and let the experts examine him." Ning Shu sighed in his heart. They were going to identify a psychopath. Ching Fei really knew how to play. Sure enough, he wanted to avoid punishment in a psychopathic way. It was very abnormal to turn a person into amber. Combined with some of Ching Fei's specious words, it was impossible. It was too easy to be judged as a psychopath. Ning Shu turned around and left the hospital to go home. Professor AI and Mrs. AI were waiting for Ning Shu. Professor AI asked Ning Shu, "How is Ching Fei?" "He took an overdose of antidepressants and was poisoned." Ning Shu sat on the sofa and rubbed his eyebrows. "Isn't he a doctor? How can he not know the dosage of medicine?" Even Mrs. AI felt that something was wrong. Ning Shu spread his hands. "There is one more thing that is worse. Ching Fei seems to be mentally ill. Now he will be transferred to the neurology department. Once he is diagnosed as a psychopath, Ching Fei will be sent to the psychiatric hospital. As for the attempted murder, it is a complete joke." Professor AI frowned. Even if he is a psychopath, Ching Fei was conscious at that time and could control his behavior. He will still have to bear criminal responsibility. This depends on the identification of the judicial organization. In fact, whether Ching Fei was diagnosed as a psychopath or not, it was not optimistic for their family's situation. If he was not diagnosed, Ching Fei would only have 5 years in prison. If he was diagnosed as a psychopath, even if Ching Fei was forced to be treated by the government, he would be released after a little better. There was no need to bear any criminal responsibility at all. Ning Shu thumped his chest. His heart felt so stifled. He felt like he was in a bad mood. Ning Shu's mother said, "Mom, I'm hungry, let's eat first." She had been running around all day and was really tired. Her body was not tired, but her mind was tired. His heart was filled with helplessness. Mrs. AI was not in the mood to cook at all. She only made 3 bowls of tasteless noodles. While eating the noodles, Mrs. AI suddenly said, "If Ching Fei is really mentally ill, does that mean that Ching Fei has always been mentally ill and has always been pretending in front of us?" Ning Shu was speechless. Professor AI, even if Ching Fei wasn't crazy, he was a psychopath. Which man would want to turn his wife into amber? Professor AI said, from the very beginning, Ching Fei was up to no good. The reason why AI Yun is still alive is because he has been practicing the art of making amber. Now that he's getting more and more skilled, and AI Yun is asking for a divorce, he probably noticed that we were suspecting him, so he took action. Mrs. AI's expression changed and she clenched her chopsticks tightly. What should we do? Can't we tell the police? The key is the evidence. Without evidence, everything is just speculation and imagination. Ning Shu spread his hands. Ching Fei is very vigilant and can't find any strong evidence. As for the adulthood case of Ching Fei's adoptive parents more than 10 years ago, it was very difficult to reverse the case. At that time, nothing was found, and the family of 3 was turned into bones. No one was willing to waste their energy on this kind of old transnational case. And Ning Shu didn't think that Ching Fei would leave any useful evidence. The 2 heart-matching certificates? But could that prove that Ching Fei was the murderer of his adoptive parents? It couldn't. Although it was beneficial to him and he might have done it, there was no evidence. Evidence. It was even more impossible for Ching Fei to confess. To be able to kill his adoptive father, obtain the inheritance, and prevent his heart from being taken, it could be seen that Ching Fei was a person with a strong sense of self-protection. Ning Shu felt that his head was about to explode. In the past, the people he met who valued love above all else had almost 0 IQ. They were easier to deal with. But if he met someone who was calm and collected like a hunter, it would be much more difficult to deal with. He could only use special means. During the time that Ching Fei was in the hospital, Ning Shu went to the hospital almost every day to wait for him. Ching Fei was transferred to the psychiatric department, and the judicial department came to check if Ching Fei was mentally ill. Ning Shu was in the hospital, so of course she couldn't see Ching Fei. She could only stand outside the ward and use her mental power to check the situation in the room. But when her mental power passed through the wall, it became very weak. Ning Shu saw a group of people surrounding the bed. Ching Fei was tied to the bed and couldn't move. His eyes were a little hollow and he kept struggling. He turned a deaf ear to the doctor's questions and muttered to himself. His reaction to external stimuli was slow and sluggish. Some people were recording Ching Fei's situation in a notebook. Ching Fei's face was full of fear, his eyes staring into the void, muttering to himself, and then he wailed. It seemed that he was hallucinating. After a while, he suddenly returned to normal. Looking at the people around him, he asked, "Why did you tie me up? Do you want to kill me?" Then he began to struggle violently, as if he was going to flip the bed over. The doctors around quickly held down the bed and Ching Fei. For a moment, the ward was in chaos. Ning Shu used his mental power to see that Ching Fei's head was slightly lowered, the fringe on his forehead covering his eyes, and the corner of his mouth raised. Ching Fei was smiling, he was smiling. Ning Shu withdrew his mental power, so tired that he felt dizzy. Ning Shu sat down, his head so uncomfortable that he wanted to vomit. It was already very difficult for his mental power to pass through the thick wall, and he had to observe for a long time. His mental power was overdrawn. This kind of tiredness couldn't be relieved by sleeping. He felt like his soul was throbbing. Ching Fei was indeed pretending to be mentally ill, but he was pretending as if he was really mentally ill. Looking at Cheng Fei's expression, he seemed to be having a good time teasing him. Cheng Fei would probably keep pretending until he went to the mental hospital. Perverts were not scary, but cultured perverts were scary. Cultured perverts were not scary, but cultured perverts were scary with high IQ. A person like Cheng Fei was extremely lethal. Ning Shu rubbed his forehead and sneered. It was funny to think that Cheng Fei was mentally ill. Cheng Fei was injected with a tranquilizer, and the doctor loosened the straps that bound Cheng Fei. They planned to lock him in the ward and observe Cheng Fei's behavior through the camera. Ning Shu didn't have much hope for these experts. He was afraid that the next time he met Cheng Fei would be in a mental hospital. Chapter 1362. In the end, Cheng Fei was diagnosed with a mental disorder. Of course, this was only confirmed after a long period of observation. Usually, when Cheng Fei was alone in the ward, he would either squat at the wall for a long time, mumble to himself, or go crazy. Basically, there was no normal time. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. If Cheng Fei could really be so cruel as to eat shit, he would believe that Cheng Fei was really crazy. Cheng Fei had no family. His only wife was his only wife. He wanted to turn her into amber, so he was forcibly treated by the government and sent to a mental hospital. Ning Shu watched as Cheng Fei was taken to a car and sent to the mental hospital. Cheng Fei tilted his head and looked at Ning Shu, who was standing not far away. Ning Shu curled his lips. It was really a wicked smile. It was really fun to be around people. Ning Shu also smiled. He walked over and patted Cheng Fei's back. Stay in the mental hospital. I'll go back and see you. Cheng Fei frowned. It seemed that he was hurt by Ning Shu's pat. Then he said, "Okay, I'll wait for you." Cheng Fei was taken to the car. He even turned around and smiled at Ning Shu. Ning Shu waved his hand and said, "I'll definitely go and see you." Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu through the car window. Ning Shu waved his hand. Parting was always sad. Cheng Fei, you can stay in the mental hospital for the rest of your life. After that, Ning Shu went through the procedures and took a pot of chicken soup to the mental hospital to see Cheng Fei. Before she left, Mrs. AI stuffed an electric anti-pervert device into Ning Shu's bag. She told Ning Shu to be careful. It was very dangerous in the mental hospital. Ning Shu nodded and took the thermos to the mental hospital. The mental hospital that Cheng Fei was in was a state-run one. High walls isolated the inside from the outside world. There were electric fences around it. It looked like a prison. This was a prison. Ning Shu took the paperwork and was taken to the ward by the nurse. The corridor was filled with crazy patients in hospital gowns. One of them was singing an opera, loudly singing, "My country is gone." One of them thought he was a dog, crawling on the ground and barking. These people were either in a daze or had gone mad. If she stayed with these people, even if she wasn't sick, she would still get sick. Suddenly, someone stretched out his hand and grabbed Ning Shu. "You demonic woman. You've brought disaster to the world. See if I don't deal with you." Ning Shu was speechless. There were so many different species here. The nurse who led the way for Ning Shu just looked at him coldly. She didn't want to help. Ning Shu shook off the patient who was grabbing him. His strength was so great that the patient took 2 steps back. "Oh, this demoness is too strong. Wait for me to go back and get my magic treasure." Then, he ran away with his tail between his legs. With a cold face, the nurse brought Ning Shu to the door of a ward and said, "Cheng Fei is inside." Ning Shu handed a bag of fruit to the nurse. There was a red packet inside. "Take this fruit. I want to talk to Cheng Fei." The nurse's expression became a little better. She took the fruit bag from Ning Shu's hand and reached into the pocket of her uniform to take out the red packet. "You'd better hurry. You have half an hour at most," the nurse said. Ning Shu walked in and the nurse closed the door. The ward was a little narrow. There was a very high and small window. People couldn't even climb out. The ward was very empty. Other than the narrow bed, there was no table or bench. In particular, some dangerous things would not be placed in the ward. If the patient was delirious and held dangerous things, he could hurt himself or others. The incandescent light in the ward was on. The light flickered occasionally. It was a little scary. Cheng Fei was the only one in the ward. He was sitting on the bed, reading a book with his head down. Ning Shu walked over with a thermos. Cheng Fei looked up and saw Ning Shu. He smiled and put down the book in his hand. "You're here." Cheng Fei moved his body and made room for Ning Shu. Damn, Cheng Fei's life was so comfortable. He didn't look like a lunatic at all. Ning Shu released his spiritual force and scanned the whole ward. He found that there were surveillance cameras in the four corners of the room. Obviously, everyone who entered this place was being watched. Ning Shu opened the thermos and gave Cheng Fei a spoon. "Eat it. My mother made it." Cheng Fei took the thermos, sniffed it, and shook his head. "It's not made by mother-in-law. She likes orange peel. It doesn't smell like orange peel. It only smells like Chinese medicine." Ning Shu spread his hands. "Okay, I made it." Cheng Fei picked up the spoon and tasted it. He couldn't help but shake his head. "You cooked everything in the pot. The ingredients are not layered. It doesn't taste good." Ning Shu was speechless. As a lunatic, even if he was given a pile of shit, he should eat it happily. Did the experts who said that he was mentally ill know what he was like now? Cheng Fei put down the thermos and stopped eating. Ning Shu was speechless. Did she make it that bad? Ning Shu took a spoon and tasted it. "I think it's okay. It was not bad. It was good enough to have something to eat." Cheng Fei smiled. "Is it not good? I think it's delicious." "Is the food here very good? Is the food exquisite?" "Don't joke. There were so many people eating in the same pot. How could the food be exquisite? It was almost like feeding pigs." Cheng Fei said, "The food here is indeed not good. I eat it to ensure my body's energy needs. But it doesn't stop me from commenting on the soup you made. Eat some more. Maybe you won't be able to drink my soup in the future." Ning Shu put the thermos in Cheng Fei's hand. Cheng Fei smiled. "You shouldn't be making soup with your bare hands. The oil and fumes hurt the skin more than time." Ning Shu was speechless. But Cheng Fei picked up the spoon and ate in small mouthfuls. He only drank the soup and didn't eat the chicken. Ning Shu looked at Cheng Fei's head and said, "Cheng Fei, you have white hair. You're only in your 30s. How can your hair be white? You must have thought too much and calculated too much." Ning Shu reached out and touched Cheng Fei's hair. "It's not just one or two strands of white hair. Then please help me pluck them out." Cheng Fei leaned his head closer to Ning Shu. "This is the mark of time. Ai Yun, I always hope that you can maintain your beautiful appearance and not have your white hair stolen by time," Cheng Fei said. Ning Shu ignored Cheng Fei's words and reached out to touch Cheng Fei's hair. "It hurts a little. Bear with it." Ning Shu pulled out a strand of white hair and showed it to Cheng Fei. Cheng Fei looked at the white hair. "I hope you don't have this on your head." Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu continued to pluck Cheng Fei's hair. An invisible silver needle was clipped on Ning Shu's hand and pierced into Cheng Fei's head. Cheng Fei frowned and immediately grabbed Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu's fingers loosened and the silver needle fell to the ground. It was almost invisible. His thumb and index finger pinched a strand of white hair. Chapter 1363. Cheng Fei's pupils constricted as he stared at Ning Shu. Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at him. What's wrong? Cheng Fei let go of Ning Shu's hand. He had just felt numb. You have white hair on your head. Do you want me to pluck it? Ning Shu asked. Cheng Fei shook his head. No need. He handed the thermos to Ning Shu. You should leave. You shouldn't have come to this place. I'll come back for you when I'm out. Ning Shu wanted to say, don't come looking for me. Ning Shu reached out and plucked a strand of white hair from Cheng Fei's head. Cheng Fei hissed in pain. Let's go. Cheng Fei picked up the book. Ning Shu waved his hand. Ning Shu stepped on the silver needle. She moved her leg forward and placed the silver needle under the bed. Ning Shu put his hand in his pocket and said, the white hair on your head is an eyesore. I'll pluck it for you. Otherwise, I'll keep thinking about it. Ning Shu didn't care about Cheng Fei's objection. She reached out her hand and pulled Cheng Fei's hair. Cheng Fei rubbed his head and felt his scalp go numb. What are you doing? Cheng Fei's face darkened. You should leave. Ning Shu shrugged and left with the thermos. I'll come and see you next time. Ning Shu stared at Cheng Fei's head. You have white hair on your head. I'll pluck it for you next time. Cheng Fei said, you don't have to come. I don't want you to see me like this. I'll appear in front of you in my best and most perfect state. Ning Shu thought, yeah. Then I'll die. Ning Shu shook his head. No. I like seeing you like this. I like it more than seeing you in your best state. Cheng Fei smiled. You're really different. You'll look beautiful in amber. Ning Shu smiled. Thank you for the compliment. Visiting hours are over. You should leave, the nurse said to Ning Shu as she opened the door. Ning Shu glanced at Cheng Fei and turned to leave. The nurse locked the door, leaving Cheng Fei alone inside. Ning Shu secretly gave the nurse a red packet and wanted to find Cheng Fei's attending doctor. Ning Shu gave the attending doctor a big red packet and said, Cheng Fei, I'll have to trouble you. His condition is a little serious. I don't want any less medicine. Also, do you think it's possible for Cheng Fei to recover? The attending doctor said, Cheng Fei's situation is a bit complicated. He doesn't think he's sick, but he's actually sick. It's a bit troublesome to treat him. Ning Shu nodded and told the doctor to take good care of Cheng Fei. After leaving the office, Ning Shu saw the nurse complaining non-stop. When the nurse saw Ning Shu, she said, don't bring food for Cheng Fei next time. Cheng Fei just vomited all over the room. It's troublesome to clean it up. Ning Shu replied, got it. Vomited? Cheng Fei must have dug his own throat to make him vomit. Did he think that she poisoned the soup? Ning Shu just smiled. After leaving the mental hospital, Ning Shu looked up at the high walls. The mental hospital was a very depressing place. The management of the hospital was very rough and the people around were not normal. They had to eat medicine 3 times a day. Even normal people would be infected by this aura of despair. Ning Shu turned and left. He walked on the mountainside. The mental hospital was built on a remote mountainside. There were only taxis at the foot of the mountain. Ning Shu hailed a taxi and went home. When Mrs. AI saw Ning Shu, she heaved a sigh of relief. Did anything happen? Ning Shu sat down. I'm fine. Then he put the thermos on the coffee table. Mrs. AI opened the thermos and saw that the chicken was still inside. He didn't eat it. No, he only drank some soup and vomited. He thinks that I poisoned the soup. Mrs. AI didn't look good. Don't visit him in the future. He is crazy. What if he hurts you? Ning Shu nodded. She would go again next time. She had to get rid of Cheng Fei. Cheng Fei didn't believe her. He ate her food and vomited it. She was speechless. After Cheng Fei vomited all over the room, the nurse didn't let her bring any more food. Cheng Fei liked to scheme. Ning Shu also started to work in the school. As a tutor, she did everything. She cared about the students' thoughts, studies and lives. She served the students in all aspects. At first, she couldn't get used to it. But after a few days, Ning Shu got the hang of it and wasn't as flustered as before. When the students had headaches or fevers, they would look for her if they had any problems. Of course, a tutor had to be outstanding in a certain field. Professor AI had enrolled Ning Shu in a foreign language. Luckily, Ning Shu knew some foreign languages. Otherwise, she would be exposed. The original AI Yun was very good at foreign languages. She had enough time. Sometimes, working wasn't just for survival. It was also for self-worth. During the weekend, Ning Shu went to the mental hospital again. She lost money again. This time, the nurse didn't bring Ning Shu to Cheng Fei's room. Instead, she brought him to the courtyard. Cheng Fei was sitting on a bench in the courtyard. His eyes were slightly closed. There were lunatics running around him, laughing and laughing. Cheng Fei turned a deaf ear. Ning Shu walked over and stood in front of Cheng Fei, blocking the sunlight. Cheng Fei's eyelashes fluttered and he opened his eyes. Ning Shu was standing against the sunlight. He couldn't see Ning Shu's face clearly. "You're here." Cheng Fei leaned back on the bench. Ning Shu sat beside him and asked, "How have you been? What do you think a lunatic's life is like?" Cheng Fei asked. Ning Shu said, "Well, a lunatic wouldn't be like you." Cheng Fei smiled. The sunlight shone on his face and the tiny hairs on his face turned golden. Ning Shu stared at Cheng Fei's hair. "Let's continue plucking hair." Cheng Fei shook his head. "I don't want to." "Come on. Don't be stubborn." Ning Shu reached out and pulled Cheng Fei's hair with force. Cheng Fei hissed. "It hurts." "It's okay. It will hurt even more." Ning Shu pulled harder and Cheng Fei groaned. Ning Shu blew the white hair on his hand. "Looks like you are older than me. If you want to be made into amber, you have to be made into amber first." Cheng Fei said indifferently, "I don't care. As long as you are prettier than me." "You are too polite. You are more handsome than me. If you want to die, you will die first." Ning Shu pulled Cheng Fei's hair again. "You are prematurely aging." Cheng Fei smiled. "That's how I am. It doesn't matter. Do you want to hear about my past?" Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu. Cheng Fei had lost weight. He had stubble and looked like he had been through a lot. "No, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know." Cheng Fei was surprised. "Didn't you want to know about my past?" "But I don't want to know anymore." "You don't have to tell me." Ning Shu pulled another strand of white hair from Cheng Fei's head. Chapter 1364. Ning Shu held a silver needle between her fingers and pulled off Cheng Fei's white hair bit by bit. Cheng Fei's face didn't change. Occasionally, his face would twitch. You could tell that Ning Shu didn't hold back. Cheng Fei said, "I was abandoned at the entrance of the orphanage when I was 4 or 5 years old. There was a woman's voice in my memory. She told me to stay there and not move. She didn't come back. I was brought back to the orphanage by the head of the orphanage. There were many children like me. They looked at me cautiously. My food was always taken away by them. Children were not innocent and cute. In that place, children were not innocent and cute at all. Even if they were innocent and cute, it was because they were adopted. They smiled innocently and happily." Ning Shuzhen listened to Cheng Fei quietly while plucking her hair. Later, my adoptive parents adopted me. But they did it for my heart. So you killed them? Ning Shu interrupted. Cheng Fei shook his head. No. You don't know what I was thinking. I hoped that my sister's heart could last longer. When I grew up, I could leave my adoptive parents, Cheng Fei said. Ning Shu, I don't believe a word you said. His wish came true. He wanted to leave his adoptive parents' family, but then they died. I thought something happened to Cheng Fei. How come nothing happened to Cheng Fei? Man proposes, God disposes. First, man proposes. Then, God disposes. Ning Shu was indifferent to Cheng Fei's reminiscence. You were the most pitiful. Ai Yun's family wasn't pitiful. Did Ai Yun deserve to be made into amber? Cheng Fei's experience was pardonable, wasn't it? Who would have thought that Ai Yun would be made into amber? She sacrificed her soul to fight back. You suffered, so you deserve to be forgiven. Cheng Fei couldn't prove his innocence. At least, Ning Shu was indifferent. Being handsome didn't mean that what you did was right. You think I killed my adoptive parents? Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu and asked. Ning Shu shrugged and didn't say anything. Although there was no evidence, it didn't mean that Cheng Fei didn't do it. Ning Shu was too lazy to pluck Cheng Fei's white hair. He took out a document from his bag. This is the divorce agreement. Sign it. Cheng Fei took the document, looked at the agreement on it and said, Do you think I will divorce you? Ning Shu smiled and said, Why wouldn't I? Placing the document on the bench, Cheng Fei crossed his fingers and calmly said, The marriage law states that husband and wife have the obligation to raise each other. If one of them is sick or unable to work, the one who can afford it has to take the initiative to raise the child. Ning Shu nodded. There is such a law, but don't forget that the couple's relationship has to be broken. You want to turn me into amber and take away my life. Do you think we still have feelings for each other? Of course, Cheng Fei said. Ning Shu was speechless. At this moment, a lunatic grabbed the agreement on the bench and ran away like a lunatic. Cheng Fei shrugged. It seems that we can't sign it. Ning Shu didn't care. You can apply for a divorce in court. It will be a bit troublesome, but you will get a divorce. Even if you don't agree, the court will force you to divorce. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu deeply. Do you really want to do this? Yes. Okay, I have to go. I wish you a perfect life in the mental hospital. Ning Shu stood up from the bench and said calmly. As for the divorce, you don't have to worry about it. I don't care if you killed your foster parents or not. Ning Shu looked at Cheng Fei with a smile. Seeing the smile on Ning Shu's face, Cheng Fei suddenly said, I think you should be the one staying here. Ai Yun, you are very sick. Ning Shu shook his head. But you are the one staying here. You are the one who is very sick. I can get out of here soon. Ai Yun, maybe I am sick, but have you ever thought that birds of a feather flock together? We are all sick. Maybe we are friends. Ning Shu turned and left. Cheng Fei rubbed his temples and felt a headache. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu's back. It was getting more and more blurry. Cheng Fei closed his eyes and fainted. Ning Shu left the mental hospital. After some time, she would return to the mental hospital again. Ning Shu was very busy every day. He had to take care of the students. He was also responsible for the mental health of the students. Ning Shu felt that with her own thoughts, she would definitely lead these students into a ditch. For example, there was a beautiful girl now. Her face was red and she wanted to say something but stopped. She was very conflicted. Mr. AI, I have a question for you. Let's talk outside. The female student said. Ning Shu nodded and walked out of the office with the female student. They walked on the tree-lined path in the school. Professor I have something that I want to ask for your opinion on. Please don't tell anyone. Ning Shu nodded. Go ahead. It is a man. A man wants me to accompany him for 4 years. 150,000 a year until I graduate. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. Why is it only 150,000? You are still young. Since he asked for money, it means that he has a family. Yes. The female student hesitated. Ning Shu said, let's not talk about morality. From a financial point of view, you are obviously losing out. You are in your first year. If you really agree to the deal, you will be summoned by him anytime. What about your studies? You should be the one to study and have a bright future. While everyone else is working hard, you're stuck in bed. You have to give up your body, time, and dignity. It doesn't seem to be hard, but you will lose your future. There is no guarantee, no contract, no legal guarantee. You may be cheated. What if he plays you for free? You will be empty-handed and your youth will be gone. This. The female student's face was a little pale. What if you are pregnant? Since he has a family, the child cannot be born. He will definitely make you abort the child. You can take it. Once you accept it, you will be his personal item. He can do whatever he wants. You will respect him. If he has any weird habits, you will have to bear with it. He will take away your youth, your body, and your future. Just 150,000. It will be like whoring. He will cheat you because you are young and ignorant. The female student, the teacher's words were so rough. That's why you have to study hard now. You have to work hard for 5 or 10 years. Whatever that old bitch has, you have it too. Ning Shu patted her shoulder. Chapter 1365. In the future, you will meet a better man than that old bastard. Love yourself and others will love and respect you. A man who cheats on his wife. What kind of man do you expect him to be? Thank you, sir. I will think about it. Please don't tell anyone about this, the female student said. Ning Shu nodded. Don't worry. Think about it carefully. 150,000 is too little. Even if the body has a price, it will not be so little. No matter what happened, the body will leave a mark. When that time came, she would want to find an honest man. How could there be so many honest men in the world? In fact, the price of this was too high. It was not worth it at all. At first glance, the cost was small, but the benefits might be great. When there was a chance of loss, it seemed like a gain without any loss. However, the body was a gift from the heavens. Cherishing it did not mean being conservative. Sir, for someone like you, your husband must love you very much, the female student said. Ning Shu was speechless. He loved you so much that he wanted to kill you. Ning Shu went to the court to apply for a divorce. She did not feel safe living with a crazy husband who wanted to kill her at any time. The court would definitely agree to the divorce. There was no need for a divorce certificate to dissolve the marriage. After a while, Ning Shu went to see Cheng Fei. He saw that Cheng Fei's movements were a little stiff. It was a little like Parkinson's. Cheng Fei saw Ning Shu and slowly sat down on the chair. Ning Shu said, I haven't seen you for a while. Your bones are rusty. Cheng Fei rubbed his legs and looked at Ning Shu. I might have Parkinson's. Maybe the next time you come, my brain will have shrunk and I will have dementia. I will not recognize you anymore, Cheng Fei said. Ning Shu sat beside him. How do you know that you have Parkinson's? I am a doctor. Ning Shu just nodded and did not say anything. I thought about it and felt that there are some things that I should tell you. Ning Shu nodded. Go ahead. I am listening. Cheng Fei asked, does my current condition have anything to do with you? Of course it doesn't matter. Do you think I'm a god who can make you sick just because I want you to? Cheng Fei held Ning Shu's hand. My biggest regret in this life is not being able to retain your beauty. Thank the heavens for not letting you keep my beauty. Ning Shu clasped his hands together and prayed to the heavens. Cheng Fei tilted his head and looked at Ning Shu. One day, you will understand me. In the passing of life, I will preserve my most beautiful moments forever. Time can't do anything about it. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. I think I understand what you're saying. You're saying that people are going to die anyway, so they might as well commit suicide wisely. Is that right? Cheng Fei was a little confused. You've changed the concept. This is different. Ning Shu stood up. I think it's the same. This time, I'm here to tell you that the court has ruled that we are divorced. So, we are no longer husband and wife. This is the last time that I'm here to see you. Ning Shu looked around. Although it is surrounded by high walls, this place is quite suitable for retirement. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu. Do you think that I can only spend the rest of my life in this place? No, I don't doubt your ability. I just mean that this place is quite suitable for you, Ning Shu said. Cheng Fei smiled, but the muscles on his face were trembling uncontrollably. Cheng Fei had lost weight again. I have a passbook at home. You can use it. Thank you. I'm already working at the university and I get paid. I have already paid for your hospitalization fees. You can stay here for as long as you want. You don't have to thank me. Cheng Fei's eyes were full of smiles. He still looked like a pet that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. You can do whatever you want. I won't be angry. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu took a deep breath. I'm not angry either. I'm leaving then. Take care of yourself and read more books when you are free. I brought a few books for you. Ning Shu took out the books from his bag and placed them on the bench. Cheng Fei started reading. Conscience, Be a Good Person, The Education of Love. Are these for me? Cheng Fei tilted his head and asked. Ning Shu nodded. Yes, these are for you. Read more. Cheng Fei smiled and said, Okay, I will read them. I like talking to you like this. Ning Shu felt that her interaction with Cheng Fei was a little strange. But Cheng Fei was as steady as a mountain. She couldn't act rashly. So, she had to be calm too. Cheng Fei waved to Ning Shu. I hope to see you again next time. Maybe. Only ghosts would come. Ning Shu walked out of the mental hospital. He raised his hand and looked at the silver needle between his fingers. The thin needle suddenly broke. Ning Shu threw away the remaining half of the silver needle. The silver needles couldn't withstand the chi energy at all. It was just a little bit of chi energy, and the silver needles broke. The broken needle stayed in the acupuncture point. The force and the needle kept stimulating the acupuncture point. Ning Shu walked down the mountain with her head held high and her chest puffed out. If Cheng Fei's brain really atrophied, he would be transferred to another hospital for treatment. So, she had to keep an eye on Cheng Fei's condition. She didn't know how long this mission would take. Ning Shu started all kinds of exams. Now that he was a graduate student again, he had to get a certificate and become a professor. After all, being a mentor was too tough. It was easier to be a professor. But it was too tough in the early stages. Occasionally, Ning Shu had to be a temporary translator. He didn't earn much but he could communicate with people. Ning Shu also went to the mental hospital. But he didn't meet Cheng Fei. He just wanted to see how Cheng Fei was doing. Cheng Fei's condition was more serious. His brain atrophied and he could only sit in a wheelchair. Cheng Fei's face was so thin that only a layer of skin was left. His chin was sharp. But his eyes were still calm. He flipped the pages with difficulty. He seemed to feel that someone was watching him. He turned around and met Ning Shu's eyes. Ning Shu was discovered. He stood up and walked to Ching Fei. "You're here." Ching Fei closed the book and turned his neck to look at Ning Shu. He looked at Ning Shu carefully. "You seem to be more beautiful." "That's because I'm the most beautiful when I spread my wings," Ning Shu said. "I'm beautiful because of myself. It's a pity that you didn't preserve it. It would be better if you could keep this beauty forever." Ching Fei said regretfully. Ning Shu was speechless. Why did this person want to turn her into amber all the time? Had he never thought that she would die? She would be dead. There was no breath, no pulse of life. "I said that you would understand me. Life is temporary, but you will exist forever." Ning Shu really couldn't understand. So what if it was preserved forever? So what if it was a summer worm that didn't know winter? So what if it was temporary? As long as they could live, they wouldn't understand each other. Chapter 1366. Ning Shu couldn't understand Ching Fei, and Ching Fei couldn't understand Ning Shu's stinginess. But Ching Fei also loved his life. When he knew that his heart was going to be swapped, he didn't hesitate to kill his adoptive parents. Actually, he only needed to get rid of his 5-year-old sister, but Ching Fei actually killed the whole family. He was no longer under the control of others. Ching Fei sat in the wheelchair and tapped his leg unhurriedly, rubbing it occasionally. Ning Shu said, "You've seen it. Hurry up and leave. It's dangerous here." Ning Shu wiped his snot. "You should worry about yourself." Ching Fei was already like this, and he was still like this. If one didn't know better, they would think that Ching Fei really loved Ai Yun. Could Ching Fei's situation be called love? Ning Shu felt a little confused. Ching Fei didn't treat Ai Yun well. He could do anything for Ai Yun, but he wanted to kill Ai Yun and make her into amber. He called it eternal life. Ching Fei's current situation was basically caused by Ning Shu. Ching Fei could still face Ning Shu calmly and care about her. Ning Shu could only say that there was poison in the candy. To be precise, it was poison mixed with sugar. Ning Shu felt that he should also care about Ching Fei. "You have to be well too. The next time I come, I don't want to see you lying on the bed and not recognize me." Ching Fei smiled. "Don't worry. At least the next time you come to see me, I'll still recognize you." Ning Shu smiled, put down the fruit and left. "Ai Yun." Ching Fei called out to Ning Shu. Ning Shu turned to look at him. Ching Fei looked at Ning Shu with sparkling eyes. "The most charming smile when you turn around. You're so beautiful." Ning Shu, suddenly, he felt like he had turned into a surf singing. She had become a beauty. However, Ning Shu felt that Ching Fei's aesthetic sense was a little different from ordinary people. Ai Yun's appearance wasn't enough to make Ching Fei have the urge to turn her into amber. Everyone wanted to meet someone who could appreciate their beauty, but for someone like Ching Fei, forget it. Ching Fei pushed the wheelchair to Ning Shu with difficulty. He looked at Ning Shu. "Your lips are very beautiful. They're suitable for kissing and saying that you love me. Can I kiss you?" Ching Fei stretched out his long arm, wanting to hold Ning Shu's waist. Ning Shu took a step back, avoiding Ching Fei's hand. "No." The corners of Ching Fei's mouth curled up and his eyes sparkled. "You're even more beautiful like this." Ning Shu tilted her head and remained expressionless. Ching Fei was flirting with her. "You're very handsome too. I'll allow you to kiss me." Ning Shu turned around and left. She waved her hand without looking back. "I don't get close to disabled people." Ching Fei crossed his fingers and placed them on his lap. He looked at Ning Shu's back view calmly. When Ning Shu's back view disappeared, Cheng Fei lowered his head and rubbed his forehead. There was cold sweat on his forehead. His head was hurting. Cheng Fei requested to transfer to another hospital for treatment. He felt that it was necessary to do a full-body checkup. It wasn't a good idea for his head to hurt like this. In the mental hospital, patients had no rights. Cheng Fei said that he had a headache and couldn't move, but the doctor said that he was hallucinating. He hallucinated that he had a headache and couldn't stand up. Cheng Fei was rejected, but he didn't say anything. But the next night, Cheng Fei's attending doctor was killed by a crazy patient. He stabbed a sharp wooden stick into his eyeball and couldn't be saved. Cheng Fei requested for treatment again. The mental hospital was in a state of panic. Cheng Fei's transfer was approved after he applied to the higher-ups. Ning Shu didn't know that Cheng Fei was transferred to another hospital. When he went to see Cheng Fei again, he was told that Cheng Fei had transferred to another hospital. Ning Shu asked which hospital Cheng Fei went to and rushed to the hospital. Ning Shu was shocked. Cheng Fei actually came out of the mental hospital. How could he describe this feeling? It was as if an ancient giant Tyrannosaurus Rex had come back to life and was rampaging in this world. Ning Shu arrived at the hospital and asked for Cheng Fei's ward. Ning Shu rushed to the ward and opened the door. He saw Cheng Fei reading a book. He was really studious. His hands never left the book. Why did you suddenly transfer to another hospital? Ning Shu asked. Cheng Fei raised his head and pointed at his head. I'm sick. Cheng Fei closed the book. There's a needle as thin as a cow's hair in my head. It's destroying my brain tissue. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and asked, how should we deal with it? Do you want to operate? Cheng Fei shook his head. It's too risky. No doctor will operate on me. Also, the needle will move. There's no way to locate it. The operation will be very difficult. Cheng Fei said calmly as if he was not a patient. Ning Shu sighed softly. That means you won't go back to the mental hospital. Cheng Fei thought for a while and said, maybe I won't go back. I can file an appeal. Out of humanitarianism, I might not go back. Ning Shu, that means Cheng Fei will be acquitted. Ning Shu picked up an apple and said while peeling it, leave the mental hospital. Cheng Fei, you seem to be mentally ill. How can they let you leave the mental hospital? Cheng Fei said nonchalantly, if I'm mentally strong enough to live alone, I'll naturally be able to leave the asylum. Mental illness will recur. The government won't let you leave. Ning Shu said as he chewed on the apple. Damn, Cheng Fei's consciousness is so clear. He doesn't look like a psychopath or a dementia. It's too crazy. Ning Shu really wants to strangle him. Ning Shu threw the apple core and looked at Cheng Fei. Trust me, you will definitely go back to the mental hospital and retire there. Cheng Fei smiled. Ai Yun, you don't want to see me so much. But I'm the nightmare in your life. You can't get rid of me. Speak properly. Don't be so artistic. There's nothing you can't get rid of. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Cheng Fei looked at Ning Shu gently. I hope you will always be so beautiful. I will. I will be very beautiful. Ning Shu didn't want to hear the word beautiful now. Ning Shu pulled the blanket for Cheng Fei. Cheng Fei looked at her. You hate me and are afraid of me. Why are you still doing these things? Ning Shu waved his hand. Don't you want to kill me too? Why are you still acting so affectionate? How can I not cooperate with you? He couldn't ask her to fly into a rage. Fear and dread would only encourage perverted pleasure. Seeing other people's misfortune was their goal in life. But it seemed like Cheng Fei did it for beauty, eternal beauty. He was still perverted. Ning Shu asked the doctor about Cheng Fei's condition. The doctor said Cheng Fei's condition wasn't good. It was mainly because of the moving needles. Ning Shu didn't want Ching Fei to leave the mental hospital. Although Ching Fei said he was a humanitarian, the possibility of him leaving the mental hospital was small. Chapter 1367. Ching Fei had already been diagnosed as a lunatic. Now that there was something wrong with his brain, it was certain that he was mentally ill. They probably wouldn't let him out of the mental hospital. They were afraid that Ching Fei would run away. If he really ran away, the AI family would live in fear. Who knew what Ching Fei would do? Although there were policemen guarding the door, Ning Shu was still worried. She went to the hospital to check on Ching Fei every day. After the diagnosis was made, Ching Fei was sent back to the mental hospital. Because there was no way to treat him, Ching Fei was basically at death's door. Ning Shu looked at Ching Fei, who was in a wheelchair being pushed into the car. Ching Fei turned to Ning Shu and smiled. He didn't apply wax on his hair. His hair was loose and hung on his forehead. When he smiled like this, he looked very bright and young. Ning Shu was still worried. She took a taxi and followed the car all the way to the entrance of the mental hospital. She watched Ching Fei being pushed into the mental hospital. Ning Shu followed them in and watched as Ching Fei was pushed into the ward. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief. Ning Shu didn't dare to let down her guard when dealing with Ching Fei. Especially when she heard from the nurse that Ching Fei's doctor was dead. Almost instantly, Ning Shu felt that it was Ching Fei's doing without even thinking. Ning Shu said to Ching Fei, "Don't worry. I won't run away. Besides, where can I run to in this state? Anyway, I don't have much time left. I'll just live a quiet life." Ching Fei said calmly. Ning Shu was speechless. No one knew if he was really calm or if he was pretending. Ning Shu didn't care what Ching Fei was thinking. As long as Ching Fei was in the mental hospital, she didn't care whether he was dead or alive. Ching Fei said, "One day, you'll understand my thoughts. When you're old and gray-haired, you'll be waiting for this decay. At that time, you'll regret not leaving behind your best years, your most beautiful years. Even if I regret it, it's my business." Ching Fei heaved a sigh. His brows were tightly knitted, and there was cold sweat on his forehead. He shook his head and lay down. It was probably a headache. Ning Shu was indifferent to Ching Fei's pain. Ching Fei's face was a little pale. He calmly said to Ning Shu, "Leave. I don't want you to see me like this." Ning Shu did not say a word. He turned around and left. No one wanted to see you. The missions in this world really made Ning Shu feel mentally and physically exhausted. In such a legal society, Ching Fei didn't take human life seriously, but she couldn't get herself into trouble just to take revenge on Ching Fei. He couldn't become a murderer. Ning Shu wondered if he would fail this quest. The needle in Ching Fei's brain would definitely make him extremely uncomfortable. How could Ching Fei not die from the pain? If she could not complete the mission, would she have to stay in this world for the rest of her life? It was impossible for him to do it for the rest of his life. He would only be judged as a failure by the system. Ching Fei was a cockroach that couldn't be killed. Ning Shu returned home and looked at the two elders of the AI family. The people who should have died in the plot were at least still alive. It was a comfort. Otherwise, it would really be a sad thing. Ning Shu had learned a skill from Ching Fei. No matter what she did, she had to make sure that she left no traces behind. Even if the truth was revealed, no one could do anything about it. Ning Shu didn't have any useful evidence to know that Ching Fei did it. But there was no evidence, no confession, nothing. There was nothing he could do. He was meticulous. Even if he left something behind, it was useless. Even if he died, he wouldn't say anything that was harmful to him. Ning Shu sat on the sofa and closed his eyes to rest. Running here and there was simply too tiring. Ning Shu even felt that Ching Fei was laughing at him in his heart. It didn't matter. If he could run, it meant that he was still alive. Now, Ching Fei couldn't run anymore. He was tortured. Thinking of this, Ning Shu felt that it was cute. Only those who could endure through time and survive would be the victors. Death was like an extinguished light. Mother AI gave Ning Shu a bowl of noodles and asked, "Are you divorced with Ching Fei?" Recently, her daughter was either busy with work or not at home at all. Ning Shu nodded. "Yes. Legally, we are no longer husband and wife. It's good that you are divorced. You are still young and have life ahead of you. You can meet many people." Ning Shu crossed her arms. "Mom, calm down. I just got divorced and you want me to go on a blind date again." Yes, you can't go on a blind date. Ching Fei met you on a blind date. He is a beast in human skin, Mother AI said immediately. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief. She was afraid that Mother AI would force her to marry someone else. Now, she couldn't even protect herself. If she married someone else, she would be a burden. Also, she didn't know if the person who asked her would get married and have a family in this life. Ching Fei had left a psychological shadow in her heart. Ning Shu clutched her chest. She felt that she was traumatized. She only hoped that she would never meet someone like Ching Fei again. Ching Fei was a serious and affectionate pervert. Those ferocious perverts who vented their anger were not as cold as Ching Fei. You still have to find someone you are familiar with. There are many people in school. Is there anyone you get along well with? Mother AI asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu touched her chin. Let me think. Then she shook her head and said, "There is no one I get along well with." Professor AI put down the newspaper and said to Mother AI, "Let your daughter rest. I am just anxious. If AI Yin gets married, she will have nothing to do with Ching Fei. Ching Fei will not pester her. I am just afraid that when Ching Fei comes out one day, he will pester AI Yin again." So Mother AI was thinking of finding a bodyguard. If this was the case, when Ching Fei really came to find her, her husband would be in a hurry to cut off all ties with her. Professor AI said impatiently, "Who can be relied on these days? Just find someone. If it is someone like Ching Fei again, what should we do? We're already half dead. If another one comes, our family won't be able to live anymore. Let's wait for the marriage." Ning Shu gave Professor AI a thumbs up. Marriage was a woman's second reincarnation. It was fine if she met a scumbag, but if she met a life-threatening person, it would be an unbearable pain in her life. Don't treat a scumbag as a flower by the river. Mother AI liked Ching Fei so much before, but now, there was no knowing what was in a person's heart. Ning Shu was willing to believe in others, but he believed in himself more. He would never betray himself. He would never give up his determination to become stronger. When faced with betrayal, he would be strong enough to face everything. He would not become a love-struck man and a resentful woman. All the resentment was because he was not strong enough. He was helpless about his weakness. If he was strong enough, he would not be afraid of anything. Chapter 1368. Ning Shu would go to the asylum whenever she had nothing to do, so she was already familiar with the nurses there. Her main purpose was to keep an eye on Ching Fei. Ching Fei didn't seem to care about the foreign object in his head at all, he just did what he was supposed to do every day. Most of the time, he would just quietly read by himself. But his movements were getting more and more inconvenient, his muscles were stiff. It would be difficult for Ching Fei to escape like this. But looking at Ching Fei, he seemed to be enjoying his life. It didn't seem like his life was in danger. Was Ching Fei afraid that he wouldn't be able to see the sun tomorrow? Every time she saw Ching Fei's calm and indifferent look, Ning Shu really wanted to see him jump up and down. But he probably wouldn't be able to see it. If the devil could control his emotions, what else couldn't he do? Ning Shu bribed the doctors and nurses, telling them to keep an eye on Ching Fei and take care of him. Ching Fei couldn't be skipped on medicine. If the situation was serious, she would increase the dosage. Actually, it didn't matter if he died from the poison. After leaving the orphanage, she still had to rush back to work. Her work at school was quite busy. Ding, mission completed, do you want to leave the mission world? Ning Shu heard the sound of 2333 in her mind, her heart jumped for joy. She had never been in a world that made her want to leave so badly. And it was a successful mission to leave the mission world. She felt so satisfied. Ning Shu immediately said, "Leave." Ning Shu felt dizzy and returned to the system space. Ning Shu didn't care about anything, she just laid on the bed and slept for a while. She was too tired, her spirit was about to be drained and her brain was about to explode. Ning Shu laid on the bed. First she silently chanted the clear heart mantra, then put on the prayer bead bracelet that little monk Huiji gave her. The space was floating with the smell of sandalwood, and there was also a faint sound of Sanskrit. Ning Shu closed her eyes and fell into a deep sleep. The sound of Sanskrit sounded in the system space, making the system space even quieter. Ning Shu didn't know how long she had slept when she woke up, there was no time flow in the system space. Ning Shu stretched his neck and sat cross-legged on the bed, beginning to absorb soul force. When he could no longer absorb any more, he stopped cultivating. Ning Shu lay limp on the bed like a slug. Open the status panel. The attribute panel appeared in front of Ning Shu. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 points, 80 million soul value, 350 HP, 141 wisdom, 404 charm, 269 spiritual power, 300 faith, 26515 combat power, 432 aptitude, 179 merit, 14170 skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate combat technique, exceptional martial arts proficiency, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skills, beginner ghost catching skills. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Tools, Calm Aura, Tranquil Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2 Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Model Worker, Qinshi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Best Friend, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Susu's Blessing, Founding Female General, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Lawful Beauty, Chen Ning's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication, by San Yang's Blessing, Note, can only communicate within a certain range of wisdom, complete the wish of Ai Yun, prove that her husband wanted to kill her. Mission completed 100%. Mission reward, 7 million points, 50 attribute points, 2,600 faith, 10 merit points. Ning Shu, how did the 10 merit points come about? 10 points was too shabby. But it was better than nothing, even a mosquito's leg was still meat. Ning Shu distributed the attribute points. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 points, 10,000 soul value, 350 HP, 141 wisdom, charm, 60-10 spiritual power, faith, combat power, aptitude, merit, skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, peerless martial arts, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill, beginner ghost catching skill. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor items, Calm Halo, Heart Calming Pill, Faith Halo, Amulet 4, upgraded. Amulet 2 Halo, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Qinshi's Blessing, Leader Halo, Grass Blessing, Best Friend for Life, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Susu's Blessing, Founding Female General, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Lawful Beauty, Chen Ning's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication, by San Yang's Blessing, Note, can only communicate within a certain range of wisdom. Ning Shu looked at his points. It was almost 100 million. Faith was also close to reaching the mark. At that time, he would become a super mission enforcer. Ning Shu opened the interface and wanted to see the situation in that world. If she couldn't see Cheng Fei's results, she wouldn't feel at ease and her heart would be in debt. Ai Yun became a professor in the school. When she was free, she would translate some books. Otherwise, she would go to the mental hospital to see Cheng Fei. But after seeing him twice, she didn't go anymore. Ai Yun felt an inexplicable fear towards Cheng Fei. Ai Yun was a graceful beauty. She was considered outstanding among the female professors in the school. There were even students who wrote love letters to her. Ai Yun didn't care at all. There were also people who pursued Ai Yun, but Ai Yun didn't accept them. Ai Yun's mother was anxious. She wanted Ai Yun to choose someone to date. Ai Yun said that she didn't have the heart now. If she really met the right person, she would consider it. Ai Yun felt that she might be alone for the rest of her life. No matter how perverted Cheng Fei was, his conditions were there. She wasn't comparing these men to Cheng Fei. She just felt that that marriage had drained his mental and physical strength. She felt that once she got married, she would be labeled as someone else. From then on, she wouldn't belong to herself. She was busy with her career and had a suitable and decent job. When she was free, she could go and drink coffee. It was a beautiful thing. If she met someone who respected and tolerated each other, Ai Yun could give it a try. But she would rather go without than have something substandard. Ning Shu understood Ai Yun's state. Everyone had a transition period. Even now, she still hadn't recovered from her shock. Her nerves were a little tense. Once bitten, twice shy. Ning Shu swiped the progress bar. She wanted to see Cheng Fei's situation. She wanted to see when Cheng Fei would die. Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at Cheng Fei coldly. From 30 years old, he became 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old. Cheng Fei still looked calm. He changed from a young man to an elegant old man. Ning Shu. Chapter 1369. How could he live for so long with needles in his brain? He usually massaged himself and lived well among a bunch of lunatics. Ning Shu guessed that the needles in Cheng Fei's brain had grown together with his. Otherwise, how could he live for so long? However, his movements were getting more and more inconvenient. In his later years, he could only lie in bed. And his head was always hurting, especially when it was windy and rainy. It hurt even more. Even in this state, Cheng Fei was still strong enough to live on. Sigh, he told others not to be rotten, but he himself was rotten. Ning Shu closed the panel expressionlessly, unwilling to look at Cheng Fei's face. He didn't get the world origin in this world, and he still had to compete with a pervert. It was so tiring. Ning Shu got out of bed and prepared to go to the virtual space to walk around and have a big meal. Standing in the virtual space channel, he appeared in the antique virtual space in a flash. Ning Shu stood on the blue stone slabs and walked towards the restaurant, one stone slab at a time. There were many mission enforcers in the virtual space. Being in a place like this gave him a sense of security. There were people like him here. He didn't feel like he was alone. Ning Shu put his hands behind his back and looked at the things in the stalls along the way. When he saw some small things, Ning Shu would spend some points to buy them. They were some good-looking decorations that could be used to decorate the system space. As long as there was no problem with the system space, it was her home. Ning Shu wanted to think of ways to make her life comfortable. In the plane, it was someone else's life, but now it was her life. She could do whatever she wanted. Ning Shu walked into the restaurant. This time, she ordered some more expensive and exquisite things and ate slowly. As her strength increased, Ning Shu found that the virtual space had a stronger substance, and she could absorb this substance. She ate and absorbed at the same time. Since the virtual space was man-made, it had a lot of power. Ning Shu was trying to slow herself down, eat slowly, read slowly, and take a walk slowly. Cultivate her body and mind and work hard to become stronger. Now that she had rested enough, she would work hard during missions. One day, she would be able to control her own destiny. She would not be killed just because someone said so. When someone else's lips moved, all of her efforts would turn to ashes. Therefore, she wanted to become an existence that others could not do anything about. After finishing his meal, Ning Shu went to the shop to buy some tea leaves. It shouldn't be called tea leaves. It should be a kind of spiritual grass that was good for the soul. While he was reading, there was a cup of tea beside him. White smoke was rising in spirals. Ning Shu felt that he was elegant and refined. Wahahaha, sure enough, shopping was the best way to relieve stress. Ning Shu bought a lot of odds and ends. Just in case, she exchanged for an upgraded version of the amulet. He exchanged for 3. She was afraid that something would happen in the system space and she wouldn't be able to exchange for anything. He could choose not to exchange for other things, but this kind of life-saving item had to be exchanged. Her heart was filled with uneasiness whenever she was with 2333. He was afraid that something bad would happen again. Ning Shu went to the black market again. He wanted to go in and take a look. However, Ning Shu immediately gave up on extracting a trace of a person's soul origin. The soul origin was something more important than soul power. With the soul origin, even if there was no soul power, there was still a chance of reincarnation. However, without the soul origin, there was nothing. Although it was only a trace, Ning Shu was still very resistant. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. What's so great about the black market? I'm not going to shop. What if the black market had the world origin? Ning Shu stopped and looked at the black market in confusion. If there was, there was. Her soul origin couldn't be less. Ning Shu hammered his chest and watched as people entered and exited the black market. So many people had a trace of their soul origin extracted. It should be fine. He felt that there were traps everywhere. Even the mission enforcers were screened layer by layer. He felt that the higher-ups were deliberately controlling the number. Judging from the ability of the mind. Ning Shu turned around and walked away with difficulty. Now that the soul origin was extracted, could he take it back in the future? The human soul had a very mysterious power. This power came from the soul origin. The power of love, hate, and emotions all came from the soul origin. What kind of person would open a black market here in such a grandiose manner? Fuck your second uncle. Ning Shu went to other places to shop and bought some small things. There was really nothing to shop around. Ning Shu returned to his system space. He poured a cup of tea and prepared to read a book. 2333 coughed, I have to tell you something. Ning Shu flipped the book and said without looking up, what is it? He picked up the teacup and wanted to drink some water. Cheng Fei has been selected into the system. Ning Shu, cough cough cough, what do you mean? System candidate. What do you mean? He will become the system. What do you mean? Ning Shu was so shocked that the teacup fell to the ground. It was like a bolt from the blue. How could such a person have such an opportunity? Zhang Jiasen was fine, but why was Cheng Fei also like this? Were all the perverts she met like this? Ning Shu hugged his head and screamed. Such people were not noticed before. But if they are discovered to have a special side, as long as they are qualified, they will be recruited. Talents are not restricted to one category. They are called talents. Aren't they talents? They are much better than most people. Mission enforcers are not only good people, but also bad people. This is a place where the strong are respected. Good and evil are not so clear. If someone goes overboard, there will naturally be people above to deal with them. Ning Shu shook his legs. I am strong, I am not afraid at all. Although she understood that good people could cultivate, so could bad people. But the problem was that these people were her potential enemies. Could it be that the higher-ups had noticed these people because of her counterattack? What do you mean by becoming a system? Ning Shu was expressionless. How come I didn't know that Qing Fei became a system? That's because you didn't finish reading. Ning Shu, but don't worry, becoming a system will erase your previous memories. You will serve the mission enforcer wholeheartedly and then become stronger together with the mission enforcer. Whether it is a mission enforcer or a system, you can become stronger. All roads lead to Rome. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and asked, 2333, are you actually a human? Yes, aren't we bound together? 2333 said. Ning Shu, he always thought 2333 was not a human. No wonder it was so intelligent and had emotions. It was different from the backup system. The backup system's voice was very mechanical. It was a mechanical electronic voice. Have your memories been erased too? Ning Shu asked. Everyone has been erased. The system cannot encourage mission enforcers to do inappropriate things because of past events and unwillingness. 2333 said. Ning Shu sighed in relief. At least Qing Fei's memories were erased. Chapter 1370. Wasn't there a saying that evil people would be punished by evil people? Not only could normal people become mission enforcers, but even some abnormal people could also become mission enforcers. But thinking about Qing Fei becoming a system, even if his memory was erased, Ning Shu still felt uneasy. Becoming a system meant that his memory would be erased. He didn't know what 2333 was like before and what he experienced. After knowing that 2333 was a person, Ning Shu felt that it was getting worse and worse. Before, he only thought that 2333's intelligence was a life beyond his imagination, but it was a person. How ridiculous. Thinking about 2333's stupid past, Ning Shu really wanted to wipe away his bitter tears. Is it possible that Qing Fei's memory won't be erased? Ning Shu asked worriedly. 2333 said, do you really think Qing Fei is invincible? Is there no one in this world who can stop him? The people above are not to be trifled with. Ning Shu was a little relieved. Whatever. It was already like this. Ning Shu was like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. When she was strong, no one could do anything to her. So what if there were 10 Qing Feis? Come on. Ning Shu asked 2333 curiously, have you never thought about recovering your memory? No, I have never thought about it. It's my past life, so what if I remember? 2333 said casually. Ning Shu applauded. So carefree. He felt that 2333 was quite stupid before he became a system. Ning Shu picked up the teacup that had fallen on the ground and cleaned the surroundings. Then he continued to read. Ning Shu took out the Ultimate Martial Arts secret book. The golden characters on the book were getting darker and darker, giving off a majestic feeling. Holding the Ultimate Martial Arts secret book in his hand, he felt an endless stream of fresh life energy. The wood element of the world made the world full of vitality. There was only one world origin. When would she be able to find another world origin? After going through so many worlds, he only found one world origin. World origin was too hard to find. The form was not fixed, and there might not be one in several worlds. Ning Shu put the Ultimate Martial Arts secret book back and looked at the black hole on the wall. He didn't know when this black hole would disappear. He also didn't know how long these two beads would take to fuse. Ning Shu didn't expect to fuse into something amazing, he just hoped that there wouldn't be any more problems. He didn't want the system space to explode again. Ning Shu made a cup of tea and continued to read. One day, she would solve the people and things that made her uneasy. Maybe when she was strong, no one would be able to shake her will. It was quiet in the system space. Only the sound of Ning Shu flipping through the pages could be heard. After Ning Shu finished reading the book, she turned to 2333 and said, "Go do the quest." Ning Shu prayed in her heart that she would encounter the world's origin this time. There had always been only one world origin, which made Ning Shu somewhat worried. Can't these worlds give birth to the world's origin? Alright, I'm ready to teleport. Ning Shu felt dizzy as soon as 2333's voice faded. When he woke up, he opened his eyes and saw that he was lying on a bed. There was another bed next to him. It looked like this was a hotel. It was a relatively cheap and convenient hotel. There was another person sleeping on the bed next to him. At this time, the sky was just beginning to brighten. The girl next to him turned over, her back facing Ning Shu. Ning Shu pulled the quilt, closed his eyes and began to accept the plot. This was a world of vampires. Vampires were immortal, had looks that mesmerized the world, and wore luxurious dresses. They used the most elegant and sexy way to bite a human's neck. They fed on blood. The original owner, Jasmine, was a member of the Blood Hunter organization, a blood hunter. The responsibility of a blood hunter was to deal with the vampires that wantonly sucked humans and killed them. Blood hunters were humans who existed to protect the survival of the human race and fight against the vampires. Vampires and blood hunters fought against each other. At least with the existence of blood hunters, those vampires didn't kill humans too wantonly. To the extent that humans became food for the vampires in captivity. With the development of technology, there were already artificial blood and synthetic blood, but many vampires still preferred the warmth of humans. The feeling of biting through the skin and blood flowing down the throat. They preferred to see the expression of humans being sucked, intoxicated and enjoying. The one sleeping next to him was called Mina. She was a blood hunter like Jasmine, but she had a lively personality and looked weak and innocent. Until now, she hadn't dealt with a single vampire. Most of the blood hunters were orphans who were brought back to the organization for training. Above the organization was the church. This time, there was a masquerade party, and there would be vampires mixed in. Mina and the client's mission was to monitor these vampires. Once they found out that they were sucking human blood, and that they were sucking the human to death, they would attack. Some vampires couldn't control their urges and would directly suck the human to death. At this masquerade party, Mina bumped into the vampire noble Prince Fei Rui who was about to suck a woman's blood. Shirley immediately shouted and rushed out, but she was sucked by Fei Rui instead. As a blood hunter, she was the one being sucked. The client, Jasmine, hurried to save her, using all kinds of tools. As a vampire noble, Fei Rui was, of course, very powerful. Jasmine was seriously injured from the beating. Mina, who had her blood sucked, covered her neck and said to Jasmine, "I'm fine. He didn't kill me. He just sucked a little blood. I'll let him go this time and find trouble with him next time." Jasmine spat out a mouthful of blood. In short, this was a touching love story between a vampire and a rookie blood hunter. Mina didn't have any professional skills, but she still wanted to take revenge and find trouble with Fei Rui. Fei Rui played her in circles every time, but he didn't hurt her. After a while, Mina felt that vampires weren't that scary anymore. Fei Rui felt that this rookie blood hunter was very interesting, unlike the other blood hunters who looked like they were facing a great enemy. This little kitten was more interesting. Moreover, this little kitten was very kind. Whenever he pretended to be hungry, she would roll up her sleeves with a conflicted expression, revealing her white and tender arms for him to suck. Although they weren't weak, they were very distinct. In any case, the two of them were attracted to each other and walked together. When Jasmine found out about this, she advised Mina to leave Fei Rui. Fei Rui was a vampire and treated humans as food. How could there be love? Vampires were a noble race and the descendants of Cain. They treated humans the same way humans treated chickens, ducks, cows, and sheep. Mina retorted that Fei Rui was different. Jasmine was a little anxious. According to the rules of blood hunters weren't allowed to get close to vampires. This was because vampires were good at bewitching, seducing, beautiful, and the temptation of eternal life. Chapter 1371. Vampires didn't have any destructive powers. They were immortal, which was what humans pursued. Some humans wanted to be embraced by vampires and become low-level vampires. That way, they could live forever. Vampire hunters couldn't have anything to do with vampires. If they broke the rules, they would be deemed as corrupted and no longer suitable to be a vampire hunter. Then they had to get rid of the vampire hunters. Vampire hunters had high salaries and all kinds of benefits, but if something went wrong, they would die. If they didn't die at the hands of vampires, they would die at the hands of the organization. In this case, they would face trial and might be killed. Molly was so anxious because Mina was her partner. If Mina was put on trial, she might be put on trial too. So Molly told Mina to stop interacting with Fei Rui. Otherwise, both of them would be put on trial. However, Mina firmly believed that Fei Rui was different from other vampires. No matter how Molly tried to persuade her, she still kept interacting with Fei Rui. Jasmine's words were really soft and sweet. Even her earnest and well-intentioned advice was unable to persuade Mina. It was really hard to be partners with someone like Mina. Just as she was thinking about whether she should report Mina's interactions with vampires to the organization to protect herself, the organization already knew. The organization had already found out and arrested Mina. The result of the trial was the death penalty, which meant that Mina had to die. Then, Fei Rui brought a large group of vampires and broke into the vampire hunters' headquarters. They destroyed the vampire hunters and saved Mina. Before leaving, Fei Rui killed Molly with his own hands because she told on him. Before Mina could stop him, Molly was cut in half by Fei Rui's sharp nails. He tore the devil apart with his bare hands. Fei Rui was a vampire noble, so he naturally considered the interests of vampires. The existence of vampire hunters was a thorn in the back of the vampires. Plus, his beloved woman was about to be killed. In a fit of anger, he destroyed the vampire hunters. Mina didn't care about the extinction of the vampire hunters. From the moment she was sentenced to death, Mina knew that the vampire hunters were a ruthless organization. It was only after growing up here that he realized how cruel this place was. Killing was as easy as killing. She was disappointed, shocked, and finally relieved. Mina naturally left with Fei Rui. Later, Fei Rui gave her the embrace. She had the ability to live forever and kept her youthful appearance. Forever with Fairy. Jasmine's only wish was to live. If she could do it again, she would definitely succeed in snitching on them. She definitely wouldn't let the adulterous couple have an easy time. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu felt that Jasmine had quite a temper. Fei Rui said that he would kill her if she told on him. This time, she was going to succeed. She had the ability to seduce him, yet she was still afraid of others talking about it. After Ning Shu accepted the plot, he glanced at Mina, who was sleeping on the bed next to his. After accepting the plot, Ning Shu had a preliminary impression of Shirley. Kindness. Other than kindness, there was nothing good about her. She had no ability, no skills, and no confidence. Moreover, her kindness was only for vampires. So many vampire hunters had died, but she had never shown any kindness. Completely ignoring the people who were killed by the vampires, why didn't they show any mercy? She was obviously a blood hunter, but she actually took pity on vampires and even hooked up with them in the end. Kindness was picky. If Fei Rui was ugly, things wouldn't be the same. Everything was just an excuse for love. There was one trait of kindness that made her worthy of love. Ning Shu only wanted to say, kindness my ass. She didn't even know her own role and was a burden to her teammates. Once she dealt with vampires, she would be flustered. Ning Shu began to cultivate on the bed. This time, he was dealing with a vampire noble who had lived for who knew how long. Fei Rui's ability wasn't just for show. With a large group of vampires and a halo around him, he was able to eliminate the vampire hunters. After that, no one could restrain the vampires anymore. This was Mina's kindness. She did something wrong and was punished, but she still felt wronged. She didn't know her own role. This was a modern world. There wasn't much spirit energy, but at least there was some. After cultivating until dawn, there was only a trace of energy in his dantian that was so small that it couldn't be seen. And this was with the help of his peerless martial arts. Mina's eyelashes fluttered and she was about to wake up. Ning Shu stopped and got out of bed to wash up. When he came out of the bathroom, he saw Shirley hugging her blanket and refusing to get up. Mina's personality wasn't suitable to be a vampire hunter, but she grew up in the organization, so naturally, she could only become one. He didn't know if Mina had a screw loose in her head, but she couldn't learn any of the skills that a vampire hunter should learn. And Jasmine, who was about the same age as her, became her partner. Basically, it was a mess. Both of them didn't perform well. The useless Mina naturally had someone to take over. She wasn't completely useless. In fact, Mina had a delicate and cute appearance. She was innocent and kind. Jasmine, are we going to the masquerade ball tonight in formal attire? Mina sat up and asked Ning Shu. She smiled until the corners of her eyes curved. Her skin was snow white, and there were blue veins on her neck that flowed with blood. Mina also had another characteristic. She loved to play and was curious about everything. Mina and Jasmine were only 18 or 19 years old. It was the perfect time for them to be youthful. We definitely have to wear formal attire. Otherwise, we won't be able to go in, Ning Shu said as he dried his wet hair. Mina's eyes lit up. She probably thought of wearing a beautiful formal attire and a beautiful mask. It was full of romance and passion. Ning Shu said indifferently, we're going to spy on vampires. We're not really going to the ball. Mina hugged a pillow and said, we're going to spy on vampires. But you don't have to be so serious. There are so many people. The vampires won't dare to do anything. Ning Shu looked at Mina and asked, what kind of existence do you think vampires are? Vampires are people cursed by the heavens. They are cursed to be immortal and live for an unknown number of years, Mina said. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. Was she sympathizing with vampires? Even if they were immortal, they could still kill themselves. Vampires aren't as pitiful as you think. Wealth, longevity, and eternal youth. Vampires can easily obtain these things. They're above humans. It's not your place to sympathize. Ning Shu looked at Mina. Don't forget that you're a vampire hunter. The purpose of a vampire hunter's existence is to restrain vampires. Humans don't make blood now. Actually, humans and vampires can coexist peacefully, Mina said. Ning Shu's expression didn't change. Can you make vampires drink coagulant to make human blood? Mina's expression turned awkward. How could she make vampires drink human blood? They wouldn't listen to her at all. So you have to know your place. You're a vampire hunter. You can't have any connections with vampires. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble too. Mina couldn't help but pout. It's not easy to come out, and you're still lecturing me. Chapter 1372. Mina was a little annoyed, since you're already here, don't be like those old fogies of the vampire hunters. Let's go prepare the formal attire. I've never attended a masquerade ball before. I heard that everyone is wearing a mask and no one knows each other. Mina changed the topic. Ning Shu casually nodded, "Go ahead, I still have something to do." Mina was a little disappointed, "Okay." Mina packed her things, washed up, and then left the convenience hotel. As soon as Mina left, Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate. It was better to sharpen one's spear before the battle. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to fight back against Fei Rui. With the attraction between Fei Rui and Mina, they would definitely be together. In the end, Mina even became a vampire. In fact, Mina's heart yearned for such a noble, mysterious, and dangerous species. It was a classic case of being in one's camp but being in another's camp. In addition, the vampire hunters wanted to punish Mina, so Mina's heart was completely cut off. Mina still hadn't returned by noon. She sent a message to Ning Shu, saying that she was still shopping and told Ning Shu to go eat by himself. Ning Shu didn't care and pulled out a box from under the bed. In the box were some tools to kill vampires, garlic liquid, crosses, and holy water. The holy water was given by the organization. Ning Shu sniffed the holy water. He didn't know what it was, but it was full of yang energy. Vampires belonged to the yin attribute. Weaker vampires would be turned into ashes by the sunlight. Only strong vampires weren't afraid of sunlight. Vampires also had many restrictions. These things had to be brought to the banquet. Fei Rui would suck a woman's blood, and then Mina would jump out to stop him. In the end, she would be the punching bag. Ning Shu was annoyed by people like Mina. Not to mention the Holy Mother's light illuminating the world, at least she would do her job well, which was helping others. Her client, Jasmine, always followed behind her to clean up her messes. The reason was that the two of them were partners. In any case, Mina and Jasmine didn't have much status among the vampire hunters. It was because their performance wasn't outstanding. This time, the higher-ups sent them to monitor the masquerade ball. This mission couldn't fail. Otherwise, it would be really hard to report back. Ning Shu left the hotel and went to a small noodle shop to eat something. Then, he went back to continue his cultivation. Mina still hadn't returned. She was probably playing somewhere. She was still at the age of innocence. In the afternoon, Ning Shu's dantian had a clear trace of energy. Ning Shu clenched his fists. He felt that his fists were filled with power. Even if he couldn't defeat Fei Rui now, he would still be able to do so. She would also be able to dodge Fei Rui's attack quickly and wouldn't be torn apart by Fei Rui's bare hands like in the storyline. At the end of the day, blood hunters were still humans. They relied on various tools to eliminate vampires, unlike vampires who were naturally gifted. It could teleport, fly, and grow fangs and nails. Blood hunters were having a hard time against vampires. If it were an ordinary person, they wouldn't even have the strength to resist. Ning Shu went out to get a dress. He found a dress that was convenient for movement. Although wearing a dress wasn't as convenient as wearing pants, he could tie things to his legs. If the dress covered his legs, he wouldn't be able to see anything. Ning Shu took a while to choose before she finally found a gown and a mask. The mask was made of black feathers and looked very luxurious. The mask covered the nose and eyes, revealing the chin. It was half covered and looked very seductive. After paying, Ning Shu carried the dress back. Mina, who had been shopping for the whole day, came back. There were 2 dresses on her bed. When she saw Ning Shu, she quickly pulled him over and asked, "Molly, which one do you think I should wear?" "I bought both, but I can't decide." Ning Shu looked at the 2 dresses on the bed. One was a strapless dress, and the other was a pink lace puffy skirt. It had a strong girlish style. Mina wanted to wear the sexy style, but she also wanted to wear the cute style. Ning Shu said directly, "I don't know. Let's see which one you like. Clothes are for others to see. How can I wear what I like?" Mina shook Ning Shu's arm. Help me take a look. Mina, we're going to work. We're not really going to the ball. Everything is based on convenience. Ning Shu couldn't help but say. You're so young. Why are you acting like an old-fashioned vampire hunter? What's the point? Mina simply took her 2 dresses and went out. Ning Shu asked, where are you going? The ball is about to start. Ning Shu looked at his watch. There were less than 2 hours until the ball. I'm going to get styled. Don't worry, I'll definitely make it to the ball. Mina took her clothes and left. Ning Shu was speechless. She really thought she was going to a banquet. She even said that humans were old-fashioned. Every year, who knew how many blood hunters died under the claws of vampires and had their blood sucked dry? You're lucky that you didn't encounter such a terrible thing. Ning Shu put on his dress, combed his short hair, and put on his mask. He looked at himself in the mirror. Not bad. Ning Shu lifted her skirt and took out the garlic water, holy water, a cross, and a pistol from the box. She used tape to wrap them all around her leg. Since he was going to the masquerade ball, he definitely wouldn't be allowed to carry a box of things inside. Moreover, he might be searched if he went in. Ning Shu was ready. He raised his wrist and looked at his watch, waiting for Mina to come back so that they could go to the ball together. Ning Shu cultivated while waiting for Mina. From time to time, he would raise his wrist to look at his watch. Mina was really too unreliable. When it was almost time, Ning Shu was about to call Mina. Mina finally came back. Mina was wearing a girlish dress. Her soft hair was slightly curled, she didn't wear any makeup, and her lips were pink. She looked like a youthful and charming child. Very beautiful. Why did you come back so late? Get ready, we're leaving, Ning Shu said. Mina nodded and put on her mask. Ning Shu was speechless. Aren't you going to get ready and bring something? If she didn't bring anything, what if she met a vampire? Who knew if there was only Fei Rui at the banquet and no other vampires? Fei Rui wouldn't hurt Mina, but there was no guarantee that other vampires would. He had always been a rookie since he was in elementary school. There was no one else like him. She might not even study seriously. I don't have anywhere to bring these things, Mina said. Tie it to your leg. Who knows if there will be any danger, Ning Shu said. They were partners, and their performance was evaluated together. He was forced to be partners with Mina. He didn't expect her to be strong, but she shouldn't be a burden. Performance was linked to salary, and it was also related to one's position in the organization. The strong were respected. If they killed many vampires, their status would naturally be extraordinary. It was all earned through hard work. Chapter 1373. Mina saw Ning Shu's sullen face and could only tie the item to her leg. However, she only tied the holy water because it felt weird to tie something to her leg. Ning Shu did not say anything. He did not rely on Mina. The two of them left the convenience hotel and saw a luxury car parked in front of the hotel. It was the organizer who came to pick them up. Ordinary people did not know about the Vampire Hunter organization, but the rich and powerful knew about it. They knew about vampires and vampire hunters. Mina lifted her skirt and got into the car. She was wearing a pair of transparent glass shoes, which looked like the crystal shoes in fairy tales. From this, it could be seen that Mina was an innocent girl who loved to daydream. She obviously lived in such a bloody organization, yet she still loved to dream. Ning Shu got into the car and sat next to Mina. He looked at her shoes. Doesn't it hurt to wear them? If she were to run while wearing these shoes, it would be fatal. It was obviously a matter of life and death, yet she could still play around. There was no need to explain her life. Ordinary people would have died countless times. Fortunately, it doesn't hurt that much. Mina said, I'm a little nervous. Nervous about what? I feel like I'm Cinderella going to the prince's banquet in a pumpkin carriage. Mina said with a smile. She even put her hand on her chest. I feel so nervous. Ning Shu nodded. Life is already so bitter, it's good to dream. Then, Mina's dream came true and she met the prince. Ning Shu closed his eyes and began to cultivate. The car drove steadily for some time. This masquerade ball was held in a manor, and it was attended by some powerful people. There would definitely be vampires mixed in, and these vampires would be people with power and money. Usually, there would be vampire hunters present at such occasions. Their purpose was to restrain each other and make the vampires afraid. Those who could attend the banquet were all of high status. Their deaths would cause unrest. For creatures like vampires, ordinary people only thought of them as people from legends. Naturally, the authorities would also hide it. The car slowly came to a stop, and a valet in a tuxedo and white gloves opened the door. Ning Shu got out of the car first and reached out his hand to help Mina. Under the guidance of the attendant, they arrived at the entrance of the manor. Someone checked the invitation card at the door. Ning Shu took out the invitation card. The invitation card had a faint fragrance, exquisite dark patterns, and fancy English words. Just this invitation alone was worth a lot of money. The craftsmanship was exquisite, and the people attending the banquet were of high status. The waiter arched his body to allow Ning Shu and Mina to enter. Mina straightened her body. Her body was a little tense as she followed beside Ning Shu. The sky was already dark. Ning Shu walked into the hall. The lights in the hall were dim and masked people were shuttling back and forth. Seeing that everyone was wearing masks, Mina wasn't so nervous anymore, and she casually picked up the wine glass beside her. Don't drink so much. Drinking will make things worse, Ning Shu said. Mina put down her glass. I'm just sniffing. You're so serious. Aren't you tired? Ning Shu was speechless. She knew that there was a powerful vampire, but she still killed the vampire hunters. How could she not be nervous and serious? The client was beaten to the point of vomiting blood. How could he not be beaten by Fei Rui this time? Ning Shu wanted to say something, but Mina slipped onto the dance floor. The lights were dim, and everyone was wearing masks. Ning Shu couldn't find Mina. She was really naughty. Ning Shu truly felt the pain of her client. He was always following behind her, afraid that she would get into trouble and cause trouble. Ning Shu stood in the corner and looked at the people on the dance floor. Some people were dancing, while others were drinking in groups of 2 or 3. The entire dance floor was filled with a romantic and ambiguous atmosphere. He didn't know who the people on the ground were, but it was very exciting to dance together like this. Ning Shu released his mental strength and observed everyone present. Then, Ning Shu saw Mina sneakily hiding in a corner to drink. She took a sip, smacked her lips, and fanned her tongue with her hand. Ning Shu was speechless. The girl's heart was overflowing. Ning Shu continued to observe these people. He saw a man leaning against a pillar in the corner, looking at everyone present. This man's face was exquisite, as if it had been carefully carved. His face was very pale, without a trace of blood. He was wearing an exquisitely tailored suit, and there was a pocket watch hanging on his chest. The pure gold chain of the watch was exposed. He looked noble and elegant, like an elegant noble from the Middle Ages. His pale, slender hand held a wine glass. There was bright red wine in the glass, and it was swaying slightly like fresh blood. His gaze seemed to be looking for prey. As if he felt that someone was spying on him, he turned his head and looked in Ning Shu's direction. His eyes were a little red. When vampires were angry, their eyes would turn red. Ning Shu retracted his mental strength almost instantly and took a sip of wine. Fei Rui's gaze scanned Ning Shu's surroundings. He frowned slightly, and there was a trace of doubt on his pale face. He felt that someone was spying on him, and the other party immediately looked away. Could it be the vampire hunters? Fei Rui's lips curled up. Interesting. Fei Rui drank the wine in his glass, put on his mask, and walked toward a tall and slender woman. Obviously, this woman was Fei Rui's target. Fei Rui was a powerful vampire noble. He wouldn't suck someone to death. At most, he would taste fresh blood. Ning Shu stared at Fei Rui. He bent down slightly, stretched out one hand, and placed the other hand on his heart. He was very gentlemanly, inviting the woman to dance. The woman placed her hand on Fei Rui's hand. The two of them stepped onto the dance floor and danced close to each other. Ning Shu wondered if he should intervene. Fei Rui was very powerful, and she probably wasn't his match now. The two of them danced out of the hall and went outside. Ning Shu put down his wine glass and followed them. Fei Rui pressed the woman against the wall and took off his mask, revealing an exquisite face. The woman's eyes were filled with amazement. Fei Rui lowered his head slightly, looking as if he was going to kiss the woman. The woman raised her head slightly, closed her eyes, and looked intoxicated. Fei Rui smiled, and two sharp teeth grew out. He opened his mouth and bit the woman's neck. "Stop it." A feminine voice sounded, and Fei Rui was stunned. Then, water splashed on him. Fei Rui raised his eyebrows. This was holy water. Fei Rui turned to look at the person who splashed the holy water. It was a very cute human girl. At this moment, she was holding a bottle of holy water in her hand. She was very nervous, and her nose was trembling. She looked at him with fear and stubbornness. "Vampire hunter?" Fei Rui patted the wet areas on his body. It seemed like the holy water didn't have any effect on him. "There's still a rookie vampire hunter." Ning Shu was speechless. It was still going according to the plot. Wasn't Mina inside just now? Why did she suddenly appear? Chapter 1374. Who knew how Mina came out of nowhere and bumped into Fei Rui? She even splashed the holy water on Fei Rui. However, it didn't seem to be of any use. Instead, she put herself in danger. Ning Shu hid at the side and watched the situation unfold. At least Mina's life wasn't in danger. The woman that Fei Rui had chosen had thought that she would have a romantic encounter with such an exquisite man. Moreover, this man had an aristocratic aura, which meant that he wasn't an ordinary person. It took 3 generations for one aristocrat to be born in a wealthy family, which meant that this man's family was very rich. Therefore, he was disgusted by this girl who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, especially with her young face. "What are you doing? Don't you have any manners?" the woman said, sounding a little aggressive. "Why aren't you leaving?" Mina stared at Fei Rui nervously and immediately said, "He's a vampire. Don't be fooled by him. He just grew fangs and wants to bite your neck." Mina pointed at Fei Rui. The woman looked at Fei Rui. Fei Rui's fangs were already gone. He looked normal. The woman's expression immediately darkened. She thought that Mina was trying to attract the man's attention. "What vampire? Why aren't you leaving? Which family are you from? He's really a vampire. You have to believe me." Mina was so anxious that the tip of her nose was sweating. Fei Rui looked at Mina with a teasing gaze. He closed his eyes slightly and sniffed. He was probably smelling Mina's scent. "Since you want to replace her, I'll fulfill your wish." Fei Rui snapped his fingers. The woman was unhappy. Just as she was about to speak to Fei Rui knocked her out with a karate chop. Her body fell limply to the ground. Mina's eyes widened. She pointed at the woman on the ground and stammered, You killed her." Fei Rui walked step by step towards Mina. Mina panicked and retreated, wanting to splash the holy water. However, she had just finished splashing the holy water. She only had the holy water with her and didn't have any other tools. Mina retreated to the foot of the wall. There was nowhere else to go. Mina made up her mind and puffed out her chest. Stop. I'm a blood hunter. I have companions. My companions are coming. Ning Shu quickly held his breath so that Fei Rui wouldn't notice. Fei Rui looked at the little white rabbit blood hunter. He placed his hand on the wall and held her in his arms. The unfamiliar masculine scent made Mina panic. She reached out to push him away, but when she touched Fei Rui's chest, she couldn't feel his heartbeat. Don't you know that vampires' hearts don't beat? Fei Rui's sharp teeth protruded from between his lips and teeth. Coupled with Fei Rui's exquisite face, he looked devilishly charming. The cold moonlight shone on his pale face, making him look eerie and terrifying. Mina was scared to death. This was her first time being so close to a vampire. It was frightening. Vampires are really a dangerous species. Fei Rui leaned closer to Mina and took a sniff. Your blood is very fragrant. It's so sweet. Mina's body trembled. I'm warning you, I'm going to scream. I'm going to call for my companions. Fei Rui bit Mina's neck mercilessly. Mina shivered and felt an itch on her neck. The vampire's thin lips pressed against her neck, causing Mina's legs to weaken and she almost fell to the ground. Fei Rui supported Mina's body, as if intoxicated by her fragrant blood. Meanwhile, Mina's tender face began to turn pale, and the blood drained from her face. Let go of me. Fei Rui finally reacted. He let go of Mina and licked the blood on his lips. You. Mina was furious. This was a great humiliation. She was a blood hunter, but her blood was sucked by a vampire. When she returned to the organization, she would definitely be laughed at, and her partner, Molly, would nag her non-stop. Fei Rui looked at Mina's wide eyes and couldn't help but laugh. You really are the weakest blood hunter I've ever seen. Don't tell me you don't know how to deal with vampires. Why would the blood hunters let you do a mission? Fei Rui clicked his tongue with disdain. You. Mina tried to stand up, but she got up too quickly and lost too much blood. She felt dizzy and rushed straight towards Fei Rui. Fei Rui reached out to support her. This is the first time I've seen a blood hunter jump into a vampire's arms. Mina pushed Fei Rui away and leaned against the wall. I'll take revenge on you. Fei Rui crossed his arms and said casually, I'll be waiting for the great blood hunter's arrival. Mina knew that this despicable vampire was looking down on her. But she couldn't beat him now. Damn it, damn it. Come out if you're done looking over there. Fei Rui looked in the direction of Ning Shu. Who is it? Mina looked around and saw Ning Shu coming out of the darkness. Her eyes widened. Molly, you've been here all this time. No, I was just passing by. What's wrong? Ning Shu lied without a frown. Mina was too embarrassed to say that her blood had been sucked out by a vampire. Fei Rui's face was filled with malice as he said to Mina, this companion of yours has been hiding in the corner and watching you. She didn't come out to save you even when she saw me suck your blood. Mina felt wronged when she heard this. Is Molly real? It's fake, Ning Shu denied. She noticed me before you did, but she didn't do anything. She's using you as cannon fodder. You're opening up a path for her while she takes advantage of you from behind, Fei Rui said. Immortality was too boring. He had to find something interesting to do. He did it on purpose. Ning Shu glanced at Fei Rui, who wanted to see the world burn. Would it kill you to speak less? Molly, are you really going to leave me in the lurch? Mina looked at Ning Shu with tears in her eyes. She felt so wronged. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Are you an idiot? You're like this with just one sentence from someone else. What's more, it's a vampire. Didn't you hide there and watch your companion get sucked out? The Vampire Hunter organization seems to be contributing to the entire human race. They make it sound like they're righteous, but in the end, they're just doing it for their own selfish desires, Fei Rui said mockingly. He was also trying to sway the resolve of the two vampire hunters present. Mina bit her lip and looked at Ning Shu with hurt in her eyes. They were clearly partners, but he didn't save her. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Who's righteous? Who would do something that doesn't benefit them? We kill vampires for money and for a living. Who said we're doing it for the entire world? It's not like we're sucking on celestial energy to live. If there's a need, then there's a need. Our existence is to restrain you vampires. Fei Rui smiled and looked at Mina, who was so wrong that she was about to cry. Actually, your vampire hunter organization is just like that. You're full of the stench of money, yet you still say that you're doing it for the country, for the people, and for the entire human race. Aren't you very hypocritical? Mina glared at Fei Rui. Shut up. Chapter 1375. You sucked my blood. I will definitely get my revenge. Mina lifted her skirt and ran away. Ning Shu stared at Fei Rui cautiously and slowly retreated. Mina was fine after running away, but she couldn't do the same. Fei Rui stretched his neck and raised his hand. Long, sharp claws grew out of his fingers. Since you're already here, don't leave. Vampire hunters are too much. How dare you peek at me? Fei Rui flashed and instantly appeared in front of Ning Shu. His bright red fingernails were almost dripping blood as he slashed at Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu tilted her head and avoided the fingernails. However, the fingernails grazed her face and left a bloody mark. Ning Shu hurriedly retreated. She lifted her skirt and pulled out the gun strapped to her leg. She fired at Fei Rui. Fei Rui teleported and dodged the bullet. He even teleported in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu spat out a mouthful of garlic water at Fei Rui's face. Fei Rui's face was stained with the smelly garlic water. It sizzled, but it didn't hurt him. However, his eyes were stained with the garlic water, causing them to turn even redder. In addition, when vampires were angry, their eyes would turn red. Now, Fei Rui's eyes were so red that they looked like they were about to bleed. She had angered Fei Rui. Since she couldn't escape, she could only take it head-on. Garlic and holy water were effective against normal vampires, but they were useless against Fei Rui. Vampires were actually similar to zombies. Ning Shu threw the gun away and dodged Fei Rui's attack. However, another bloody mark was left on her face. Fuck, you're just scratching my face to ruin it. My face is pissing you off. Ning Shu sucked out all the spirit energy in her body. Her fingers flew as she formed a spell. A talisman slowly appeared. Fei Rui's pupils constricted. Eastern spell. Go. Ning Shu pointed. The talisman turned into a ray of light and shot towards Fei Rui. A cloak appeared on Fei Rui's body. He used the cloak to shield his body and block the talisman. When the talisman came into contact with the cloak, it immediately exploded and white smoke rose into the air. Ning Shu picked up the gun on the ground and immediately ran away. The spirit chi in his body was too little. He barely managed to make a talisman, and the spirit chi in his body was already completely depleted. If she delayed any longer, she would really be torn apart by Fei Rui. Fei Rui's face turned ugly when he saw the hole in his cloak. His eyes were bloodshot. Among the vampire hunters, there were also people who knew Eastern spells. Other than that old bastard from the vampire hunters who knew a little about magic, there were also people who knew about Eastern spells. Fei Rui disappeared in a flash. Ning Shu escaped from the manor and prepared to return to the convenience hotel. Fortunately, there were no deaths this time, so the mission could be considered completed. Ning Shu wiped the blood off his face. There were 2 cuts on his face. Fei Rui's claws were sharper than knives. If she had dodged any later, his claws would have pierced through her head. Hurry up and cultivate. Ning Shu discovered that the use of talismans in this world was exceptionally smooth, as if there were no restrictions. This meant that this was a rather magical world. After all, there were even vampires. Therefore, he had to work hard to cultivate. There was no other way except to increase his own strength. Ning Shu went to the pharmacy to buy some disinfectant and applied it to his wounds. Maybe there were bacteria on Fei Rui's fingernails. His fingernails suddenly grew out and were even longer than his fingers. Ning Shu bought some clothes and changed out of his suit before returning to the convenience hotel. Ning Shu opened the door and saw Mina sitting on the bed. Mina snorted and turned her back to Ning Shu. She looked very angry. Ning Shu went to the bathroom and removed the thing tied to his leg. If she wanted to be angry, she could be angry all she wanted. After washing up, Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate. He discovered that talismans were more useful than holy water. Against a powerful vampire like Fei Rui, normal things were useless. Mina's back was facing Ning Shu. She wanted to wait for him to explain to her, but Ning Shu didn't say a word to her. This made Mina a little unhappy. She turned around and saw that Ning Shu was actually sitting on the bed, ignoring her. "Molly, don't you have anything to say to me?" Mina couldn't help but ask. She felt very stifled. It was as if she was the only one who cared. The other party didn't care at all. Ning Shu opened his eyes and looked at Mina. "What do you want me to say? You just watched as that vile vampire sucked my blood and didn't come out to save me." Mina felt very wronged and stretched her neck. "Look, there are 2 holes in my neck. We're partners, but you didn't save me. This is against the rules of the vampire hunters." Mina said sadly. "So you never saw me as a partner who would go through life and death with me?" Ning Shu said directly, "I can't beat him, so why should I come out? Besides, that vampire didn't do anything to you." "What do you mean by nothing? Look at my neck." Mina opened her eyes wide and wet. Ning Shu was speechless. "So, you're blaming me now?" Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at her. Mina's heart trembled under Ning Shu's cold gaze. She pursed her lips. "Aren't you the one in the wrong? Mina, can I ask you not to be such a white lotus bitch? In the end, didn't you also leave by yourself and leave me to face that vampire alone? Why didn't you think of us being partners at that time? Didn't you think that I would complain if I was killed by that vampire?" Ning Shu really had to hand it to her. She never remembered what she did, and when it was done by someone else, she looked so wronged. This was really fucking enough. Even a white lotus bitch should have a limit. Mina widened her eyes slightly, and her eyes were moist. She looked very wronged, really wronged. "I was just dazed at that time and forgot." "Oh, then I was also dazed when I saw your blood being sucked. I don't remember anything," Ning Shu said perfunctorily. Mina bit her lip. "Molly, you don't want to be my partner? What do you think?" "Of course I don't want to be your partner," Ning Shu said bluntly. "I'm just your partner, not your servant. Why do I have to spoil your princess syndrome?" Mina burst into tears. She covered her head with the quilt and cried under the quilt. Ning Shu turned a deaf ear and began to cultivate. Mina cried for a long time. Seeing that Ning Shu didn't comfort her and even closed his eyes, she felt even more wronged. Feeling even more wronged, he sat up and said to Ning Shu, "I will definitely hunt down that vampire and make you see me in a new light." Ning Shu didn't even bat an eyelid. "Don't talk about hunting down the vampire, he would have to pay for it." Not only would he have to pay for one person, but he would also have to pay for the entire vampire hunting organization. He was clearly the one in the wrong. When he was being punished, he felt so wronged. He was in the wrong, but how could they treat him like this? You're all bad people. White Lotus bitches were the classic example of strict people who treated themselves leniently. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.